So let's say if you're building Bank of America, we have 4 functionalities: login, accounts, money transfer, and bill pay. So the development team says we are done with code development. This is the final software. As far as our work is concerned, we have built everything. Okay, so the software is available. Now, once the software is available for web applications especially, so I'll give you all 3 examples, okay, so that you are clear. Now, what happens when we are building a web application? Everybody understands what a web application is, right?
Yes.
So when we are building a web application, so let's say I am the development manager. I send out an email or say it in a meeting, development is done. Software build is available or the code is deployed. Okay, so there's one difference between this two. Let me explain you. Software build is the actual executable file, correct? And code deployment is that executable build has been installed. Got it? The difference? Software build is the actual executable file, whatever the number is. This is the software build. Code deployment or code is deployed means that this has been installed. Okay? Now, what do I give you as a testing team? I don't want you to install this. I don't want you to deploy code. You should just understand this concept. All I'm going to give you is, for testing, is a URL. Okay? This URL is going to be something like application. Okay. Now, do you see this test in here? What does this tell you? So you will, let's say you are the QA team, you will access this URL and you will start testing. Okay? Very, very important to understand this. I'm repeating this from last time. This is called the QA or the test environment. What does this mean? This means that this software build has been installed on a server by the developers, okay? And this URL is accessing that information from that software, and this is where the application can be used for testing, okay? Now, how you will test, how to do testing, we still have to learn, okay? But this is the URL, the application that we will start testing. Now, we also talked about another environment before this, dev environment, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You have no business in dev environment, but you should know what a dev environment is. Dev environment is where the development team deploys the code and does testing.
Mm-hmm.
More than testing, what they do is how much to check their progress, right? They want to check their progress, how much development is completed over a period of 3-4 months, right? That's what they use that environment for. You never test in the dev environment. Then we have production environment. What is production environment?
It's what client?
Application, right?
Production environment is the real environment which the whole world is going to use. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who, not the whole world, but clients of Bank of America.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Bank of America. So the Bank of America that you go to is a production environment. Okay? So this is clear, the concept. There is one more environment between here, but we'll talk about it later. Okay? Just remember these 3 for now. So let me make you another concept clear related to software build. So let's say the final build in the development environment was BOA 200.exe. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
This build, this is what the development team tested. When I say tested, they saw that the whole application is built. Okay? According to them, it is working. So they deploy the same code, okay, in the QA environment. And they give you the URL for testing. All right? So you start testing. So what is in the QA environment? The same build, BOA 200.exe. Now we all start testing. Okay, we have our test cases, we find bugs. Okay, we log those bugs. Let's say each of us log 2 bugs. Okay, so we have 20 bugs. So we start testing this application and we log 20 bugs. All right? Now we have logged them in Jira. Those bugs are assigned to the developers. Okay, what do the developers do? They start fixing those bugs. How do they fix bug? By writing code, right? By either adding code or deleting code or editing code, right? They make code changes to fix those bugs. What happens after that? So they write code, another build is created called BOA 201.exe. Correct? It is created in the dev environment with all the bug fixes. If the developers want, they can install it and test it, that the bugs are fixed. That's their business, right? We don't tell them what to do as a development team, they do what they have to do. So ideally, they should install this build and test that those 20 bugs are fixed, correct? And then they deploy this where? In the QA environment, correct? So what build do we have in a QA environment? BOA 201.exe, which should have all these 20 bugs fixed, ideally, according to them. And you retest those bugs, correct? All right. So you keep logging more bugs, they keep fixing those bugs, okay? So let's say over a period of time, by the time all the bugs were fixed, you get a build, BOA 250.exe. Okay? So one thing you've understood, that the dev environment and QA environment will have the same builds, correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Because if they will first deploy the code in dev environment and deploy the same code in QA environment when they fix the bugs. Okay? So these two kind of have, so first the build is deployed in dev and then in QA. Okay? Obviously, if they realize that something is not fixed, they will fix that, create a new build, and then deploy it to QA. Correct? Everybody's following? Okay. Now, let's say this is the final build. Final build in QA means the QA team says, we have tested everything. We have found the bugs, we have retested the bugs, everything looks good. I think the application is ready. Okay? So this build gets deployed to production. Okay? So this becomes the software for production. Now,
It's just the time when they say it goes on live.
goes live. Production is live. Live, it goes live. Now there is one environment between that which is, I don't want to confuse you right now. I will talk about it later. But for now, these are the three main environments. Okay, when we do different types of testings, I'll talk to you about these.
So when the bugs are reported at the same time the developing team started debugging process, or
So yeah, they should start right away. See, couple of things as a QA you have to realize and know your limitations. Limitation is you don't test the code. You actually, and don't say this in an interview, you actually don't care what they write the code in. What you care is that the software functionality should work based on the requirements and design documents. That's what you're testing. That the software is working the way the requirements and the design documents has it written down. Okay? Whatever programming language you use, you are not bothered about that. Okay? So you're testing the functionality. If the functionality doesn't work correctly, then there's a problem. Now, another thing is, I don't want any one of you to use these words that as a QA you fix a bug. You never fix any bug. Okay? You log bugs, you find bugs. You don't fix any bugs. Okay? And then what you do is you retest the bug after it is fixed. You don't retest it till it's not fixed because it's going to be there again. So you only retest it when the developers say it is fixed. Okay? So that's your job. Now, so this concept is clear. Okay? I'm going to revisit this during maintenance phase. Okay? There's a reason I'm explaining this to you again. We're going to talk about this again during maintenance phase. Okay? Okay, what happens in the testing environment? So, lot of things happen in the testing environment. I'm going to start documenting it and send you this document. I'm going to write it down. You don't have to take any notes because I'm going to send this to you. Just okay. So there are two parts to testing phase. Okay, what are the two parts? One I'm going to call test prep or test preparation. Okay. Let's just make this short form, test prep. And the other one is called test execution. So what is the difference between test prep and test execution? Okay. So let me explain it to you first. So what do you think the QA or the test team is doing after requirements phase is done? What do you think the QA team is doing during the planning phase and the design phase and the development phase? What is the QA? They're not getting money to just sit there and
Right.
free money, right? Right. So what do? So during planning phase, so let's take a timeline. Okay, requirement phase was 1.5 months. Planning was 3 weeks. Design was about 2 months. Development was 4 months. So 4 to 6.5 months, what do you think you're doing?
We'll be doing on previous projects.
Yes, that's one thing. Good answer. Related to this project, what will you be doing?
Maybe they give you some
I'm reading the requirements.
Correct. So you will be doing test prep.
test.
So test prep happens during the planning phase.
design.
See, before requirement phase is over, there's nothing much you can do. Correct? So in the planning phase, after the requirements are done, you are reviewing the requirements. You are attending the BRD review. You're getting clarity about the functionality of the application from the business analyst. What are you doing after the design phase? You are reviewing the design documents, attending those designs meetings, review meetings, asking questions and getting clarity about the functionality. Okay, so you have lot of time to prepare for your testing. Okay, in waterfall, not in Agile, in waterfall. Okay, so what happens in test prep? The first thing is review BRD. Okay, for a week you review, then you attend BRD review. Okay, where you ask questions and get clarity. Clarity of what? The
Project.
functionality
Functional.
or the business reason of the application.
Questions to be asked only to the team leader or
To the BA, to
manager?
the BA, to the BA.
To the BA.
So first you ask, so depending on who the owner of the document is. So you ask questions to the owner of the document, which is the business
So we
analyst.
can directly
And then you can discuss amongst your team. So you have a QA team, right?
Mhm.
So you have a separate meeting of the QA team, which I'm going to talk about right now. You can have discussions internally in the team. One understands better than the others, they can explain
Correct.
it. But your first person to ask questions is the business analyst
BA.
during the BRD review.
So you can bypass the team leader.
Yeah, you don't need to talk to any team lead. Yes, you go directly to the business head during the meeting. You can ask those questions. So attend BRD review. Then attend, what are the other documents in design phase? FRD review.
Are you going to send this to us?
Yeah, I'm going to send this to you. That's why you don't need to take notes. I'm going to send it to you. Review FRD. Okay. Then you're going to do attend FRD review, ask questions and get clarity. Okay. Same thing for So you will have, if you are in a waterfall project, you will have a lot of time to do test prep. Okay, there will never be any dearth of time. You will have more time than what you need. But when you are actually doing test execution, you always have a short period of time. That's why it is very important to do test preparation really well. Okay, I'll explain you what that means also. Everybody is following what I'm writing?
Yes.
Mhm.
Review BRD, attend BRD review, review FRD, attend FRD review UI mockups. I'm going to put it in one because we haven't covered it a lot in detail. Review mapping document and
Database design.
database design document. And we haven't discussed this in detail. And attend mapping doc and design doc review. Okay? So this will help you understand the business reason of the application, the high-level business functionalities, the functional requirements, how that functionality will be implemented in the application, how the UI screens will look like, right? And again, how the mapping and the database, which we will cover later. Okay, so you have a good understanding, you have a lot of time to do it. Now the first document or the first deliverable of the test or the QA team is called test plan. Who creates the test plan? It's usually the test manager who creates it, but if there is no test manager, then the team lead of the QA team will create it. So some companies have managers, most of them have managers, but some companies have a lead also instead of a manager. It's a different term they give. So who writes a test plan? The test manager. What is included in? I'm not going to talk too much because we're going to spend 3 hours discussing this test plan later on in the training. Okay, but just to give you a general idea, it's the first document that is created by the QA team, by the QA manager. It gives all the details of what we are going to test, how we are going to test, what are the tools we are going to use, what are the different types of testings we are going to do. Okay? The whole process of testing is documented. So typically this is all you need to know right now. It's the first document, first deliverable by the QA team. It includes what we are going to test, how we are going to test, what are the tools we are going to use for testing, okay? And what else? What are the different types of testings we are going to do, okay? All this is documented. There's much more to it. We'll have a 3-hour class discussing test plan, okay? So that's what test plan is at a high level. Then the next deliverables are your test cases. Now we are going to learn how to write test cases after SDLC. This is the next topic we're going to do, test cases. Now, I've briefly told you what a test case is. I'm going to again write it down or you know what, let me write it down there. It'll make more sense. So we are going to have at least 6-hour session or more for writing test cases, okay? So we're going to go into details, but I briefly told you what test cases are, okay? So you have steps or description where you document what steps are you going to take to test a software, okay? Then you have expected result. What do you expect the system, how the system will respond based on your steps, okay? So when you're writing your test cases during test preparation or test planning, you know, let's use another word so that you get familiar with test prep or test planning. 2 different terms. So your test cases have steps or description. I'm going to write a test case for you. And this is your expected result. And after you have written the test cases, when you execute it, you have actual result and pass and fail. But let's talk about it during test execution. So during test planning, all you're writing is test case number, ID or number. Steps and description. So who's gonna tell me a test case for Bank of America?
Login ID.
Okay. Before that,
The log app.
for Bank of America website.
Oh, website?
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So let's say this is test case 1. Steps is, now I
Oh,
told you.
URL of Bank of America.
Yeah, opening the browser. Okay.
Open the
Now, as I said, there is not only one way of writing test cases. Okay. When you guys learn and practice how to write test cases, each one of you are going to write different style, which is okay. Okay. There is no one style that I want you to adapt. I'm going to tell you my style of writing it. If you like it, you can follow that, or you can come up with your own style. What is important in test cases is clarity. Okay. If you document something and you don't understand it when you read it, those are called bad test cases. If you write your test cases and you can read it and understand it, those are called good test cases. There is nothing in between. Either your test cases are good or they are bad. Good is if you can understand what you have written, it is a good test case. If you don't understand what you have written, it's a bad test case. Similarly, if you have written a test case, if I write a test case and she understands my test case, it's a good test case. If I write my test case and she doesn't understand, she has no clue, she comes to me for asking a lot of questions, it's a bad test case. Okay? So that's the definition of a good and a bad test case.
So
Yeah.
it's a different person who write and who execute.
It's possible. Usually the person who writes will execute, but there are many times when somebody else will execute. And I'll tell you those situations. Okay? So you should always write test cases keeping in mind, even if you end up testing, you should keep in mind that somebody else will be using my test cases to test the software. So it should be clear so that when they are reading my steps, they should not come and ask me a lot of questions. Because if they do that, then I will not be able to do what I'm doing at that time. Okay? So that's the important thing. Anyways, we'll go into detail when we talk about test cases. So what is a simple test case? User opens a browser, I'll say Chrome browser. Let's say. User opens a browser, opens a Chrome browser, and enters the URL bankofamerica.com and clicks on enter. The system navigates the user to the Bank of America website with the following text boxes: username, password, and sign up. Okay. This is the way I write my test cases because it makes it very easy for me. The key is whatever action a user takes while testing a software should always come under steps and description. Whatever reaction the system takes due to the user's action should be my expected result. If you deviate from that, you will get stuck. If you put the system action under your steps, then you will not know where to go next. So what is steps? Steps are user action on the software. Okay? What is expected result? The system responds to the user action. If you remember this, writing test cases will become very easy. As soon as you deviate from this is going to become very tough, writing test cases. So follow this rule. Whenever you're writing test cases, your steps should be the user action on the software. Expected result should be the system response for that user action. Okay? For this user action, that's in your steps. Alright. So this is your test case. Now obviously, one person is not going to write test cases for all of Bank of America. We have a team of 6 QA, so the work will be distributed. So one person will write login, 2 people will write for accounts, 3 people for money transfer, 2 people for bill pay. So you are writing test cases for your own functionality. Okay? So 2 things I miss because I'm going to miss it multiple times, but I'll come back. So test plan, you have to review the test plan. The review of test plan and with all stakeholders. Every document is going to be reviewed and signed off. Okay? So same goes with the test plan. Review of test plan with all stakeholders and sign off. Test cases, no sign offs, just a review. Review. Why am I giving numbers? They already have numbers. It's fine. Review test cases and incorporate feedback. What does that mean? So we are a QA team. We have written our test cases. Okay, we send them for review to all the stakeholders, and then during the review, they will give us feedback. What could be the feedback? I think you missed this functionality. I think you missed this step. It's okay. They're actually helping you. Mm-hmm. Okay. If somebody finds problem with your test case, they are your best friend. You should thank them. Okay? Not take it the other way that this person is finding, I don't like this person, he's finding problems with my test case. Actually, they are your best friend. Why? Nobody's going to care that your test cases had problems. What they're going to care is you missed bugs. So if your test cases are not good, that means you are missing something. When they give feedback, you incorporate that feedback in your test cases. Okay? So you missed a functionality, they'll say you don't have any test case for this functionality. So you should update it so that you have all that when you're actually testing. That's the feedback you get from, mainly it's the business analyst and the developers. Sometimes the design team also, or all 3 teams. Design, development, and
Production.
business analyst. Business analyst team, they'll give you feedback about your test cases when you're reviewing them. No sign-offs on test cases.
What happens when this requirement is totally missed by the developer and it comes to you and you read and find
Then
out?
you log a bug, call it critical. So question is, what if a developer misses a requirement completely and it comes to you for testing? You're going to log a bug and say this functionality is not working. You
So you
don't
don't
have
write
to,
any
you
test-
don't rub it into the developers that you missed
Right.
it or you've done something wrong. There is a bug, the application is not working.
So you don't have to write any test case or anything for that? At
No,
that-
you will.
at that
Your
time.
test cases are not written when the developer, your test cases have nothing to do with development.
Okay.
Your test cases are based on requirements and design documents. And you write it independently of any other team. You review it with them, but the developer has missed a functionality doesn't mean you miss it in your test cases.
Correct.
Right? So you have your test cases and the developers do their own development. Okay? So your test cases are done. Then while you're doing your test cases, there is something called test data. We've talked about this. Okay? So it actually happens together. I have just written it separately for you to understand. But your test case, I should write it together actually. Test cases and test data. Because you create test data and test cases together. Now let me tell you right now, there will be softwares where you will need large volumes of data for testing. Obviously as a QA you can create that. Okay? So it is still the QA's responsibility to know what test data they need for testing. Okay? If the test data is huge, you can get help from the developers to create that for you. Get my point? That even if the developers are going to create test data, you have to tell them to create. They are not going to create it on their own. So you have to run the process of test data. Either you create it on your own as a QA, or you get help from developers to get the test data. Okay? For example, we haven't learned databases yet, right? SQL. So you can write SQL queries to create test data. The developers can do it for you. Whoever does it, it's your responsibility to have it done. So test data is QA's responsibility, though a lot of time the developers help you create it. But it is still your responsibility to have it done. Okay? So test data. Now before we move forward, we have 12 minutes. Let me make some concepts very clear. We talked about this earlier also, but I want you to be very, very clear about this. So before drawing it on the board, since we've discussed it, so what will you do as a QA if you come into work? So you are in test execution phase. I'm jumping right now, okay? Everybody, so this is pretty much what test planning is, okay? There are a couple more things I'll add, but test execution. Okay, what is test execution when you're actually testing? So this is test planning. You're not doing any testing, right?
Mhm.
You're just planning, you're creating your test cases and test data. You're not testing anything.
So I have test cases, I execute them.
Yes, test execution is you have test cases, you're going to actually test using those test cases. That is test execution. One question on test execution. So let's say you have your test cases ready. Okay, the final build from development has come, the code is deployed, you have the URL for Bank of America. So you start testing, day 1 you log some bugs. Day 2 you log more bugs, day 3 you log more bugs. Okay, you keep testing. Now you're in a situation where just you right now, you have executed 30 test cases. Okay, your total number of test cases are 300, but you only executed 30 in the first 2 or 3 days. You have found 15 bugs. So what does that mean? 15 bugs means 15 test cases failed?
Not ready.
Correct? That's what it means, right?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
When do you log a bug?
When it's failed.
When the test
When it's
cases
not
fail.
working.
Correct. So 30 test cases you have run. So total test cases are 300.
Mhm.
30 you have tested, executed.
Mhm.
15 failed, 15 have passed. Okay?
Okay.
It's a very common scenario that you will encounter at all times. So 15 have failed, you've logged 15 bugs. Okay? You come in next day. Okay? And the developers have fixed these bugs. So they did not fix it in one day. You logged some bugs on day 1, you logged some bugs on day 2, you logged some bugs on day 3. Okay? On 4th day when you come in, you look in Jira, all these 15 bugs are fixed.
Mhm.
What will be your approach on day 4th? So you have 2 things you can do. Number 1 is, you can start with test case 31. Correct? If you've run 30 test cases, what is the next test case? 31. So either you can start with 31, 32, or you can validate these fixed bugs. You can't do both at the same time. What will you do first? This is an interview question they'll ask you.
Validate.
Huh?
Validate.
Why?
Because first fix those bugs
I can
already
go
you.
on with that.
Huh?
Because you check test those.
You check or you validate, you don't fix.
You only check.
You validate
Mhm.
the fixed bugs.
Fixed bugs.
But what's the problem? Why don't you run them and then validate them later? Why
Yeah.
should you
Because
validate?
Because first you have to finish that one.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we found 15 bugs, and then next
Over a
day,
period of 3 days. Okay.
the next day we come to check if these bugs were fixed or validated.
You check it in Jira, which I'm going to show you. So let's say they are fixed.
Yeah. Do we do only the 15, or we do again the theory altogether.
That was my next question. I'm not going to answer that. We've discussed this. That was my next. So you will get an answer, but I want somebody to answer it before I. Okay. So she's asked the second question that I was about to ask. So let's finish the first one, then we go to the next one. Okay. So why are we? So everybody first of all agrees. Now I want you to logically understand. If you're just agreeing because others are saying and I am saying, then you've not got the logic. Okay. Does everybody agree that we should first validate the 15 bugs and then continue testing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, everybody agrees?
Yeah.
Anyone who doesn't agree? It's okay if you don't agree.
Nice.
Okay, so everybody
Let's
agrees.
validate.
Now why?
Because code
The
is
logic-
changed.
Why? Because she's saying that you have to first validate what has been fixed. That's a good answer, but that's not a complete answer.
I have a
We will come to your another question
No,
or this.
okay, I think we don't, because we have to run it again for fixed and.
Hold on, we'll go get there. Let's wait till there. So wait for that. So we all validate, okay? Everybody agrees, okay? Now let's answer her question, then I'm gonna give you the reason, okay? So her question is, now, she also agrees that we should validate first, okay? Now the second question that I was about to ask, she already asked that. Now is the second thing, should I start with 31? So we validated these. Let's say in that everything has passed. Everything was fixed. So all this is done. We validated, all the bugs are fixed. Now, should we start from 31, 32? Because we've already done this. Or we start from 1 again. That's my question.
We start from one.
Okay. Everybody agrees that we should start from 1. We've discussed this last week.
No.
So who says we should, it's okay, who says we should start from 1 again? 1, 2, 3, 4. And who says that we should not start from 1? Okay, so the answer is we should not start from 1. Okay, let me finish. So we should not start from 1. We should start from 31. Okay, and keep moving forward. Having said that, when we were validating these 15 bugs, we've kind of already passed 15 test cases here. Agreed?
Right.
So when we are validating these 15 bugs, in other words, we are passing these 15 test cases. Yes?
Yes.
Okay? So first we will validate these bugs and pass these 15 test cases. So in other words, all 30 have passed? Because 15 had passed earlier. 15, we just
Validated,
passed.
yeah.
And then we start with 31, okay?
Mhm.
Now coming back to answer, so before I answer that, let's say for a second, we agree with you that we start from 1 again, okay? We will never finish our testing. Logically, what you're saying is not wrong in a way, okay? So we should do what you're saying. What you're saying to start again, we should do that because your logic is right. Because why? Some of them can be broken with these fixes, right? So your logic is right. So the reason they were saying that we should start from 1 again is because their reasoning is absolutely right. That these 15 fixes could have broken the 15 test cases that
Already
have
passed,
passed.
yes.
It's a possibility. Maybe it has, maybe it don't, we don't know. Okay? So their logic is right that we should start from all over again. But we cannot do that. Why? Then we will never finish testing. We come on day 1, we test 15 test cases, 10, 10, 10. 4th day, we start all over again. We find more bugs. Then the next day we come, we validate the fix, then we start all over again. If you keep starting all over again after every few days, then you will never finish the testing. Having said that, okay, what they're saying is also right. So how do we not start from the first one, but also take care of the issue that they have? How do we do both? So that is where automation comes in.
Yeah.
Okay? So manually, you will keep moving forward. You will never go back. Unless you are validating it, you are automatically doing it. But the 15 that had passed, you will not manually test them again. So you keep moving forward. the person who's responsible for automation, now this is a very, very important concept of automation. We will revisit it when we do automation. So we all are a QA team, okay? Out of this QA team, me and her are automation testers. You all are manual testers, okay? You will manually test this. What is our job? Our job is obviously initially to review the test cases that you have written so that we understand the functionality. So we will also participate in understanding the functionality, reviewing the test cases, but we will not write them. You guys will write them. We will just review it. What is our job? As soon as a test case is manually passed, okay, we can see that in, how do we know something? We don't have to talk to you. There is a tool called test trail. When we learn it, it will show us, anyone can see which test case has passed, which has failed. Any test case that has passed, we will automate that. What is automation? Selenium will test that. So first you have to manually test it, then we automate it. Once we have automated it, we can run it at any time. We can run it 10 times a day, okay? Ideally, we should run it when the bugs get fixed to test if the previous functionality is not broken, but we can run it at any time. We can run it 10 times a day because it's automated. We just click and we walk away, right?
And we will be able to catch the bug at that.
Yes, we will be able to catch the bug, okay? So question, one thing. Why don't we, 1 minute left, why do we do manually? Why don't we start automating from day one? Who can answer that? Then why do we need manual testers? Only me and her should be able to test it. We don't need you to hire you guys. But why do we hire you? If we both as automation tester can automate everything, then why do we need you?
Automation
test
is possible
cases.
without manually.
Automation, now a lot of people in the industry don't understand that. I want you to learn that from this class. And if an idiot at your work is trying to tell you to start automation on day one, you politely tell him it cannot be done, and I'll give you the reasoning why, okay? So theoretically it can be done, but practically it cannot be. Theoretically it can be done. You can automate anything at any time you want. Nobody is going to stop you. But if a test case or a functionality has a defect, if it has a defect, you cannot automate it, okay? You can only automate a test case after it has passed. So if it is a amazing scenario that everything is passing, then yes, you can automate from day one, but it never happens. If everything would pass, then you don't even need testing, right? Get my point? Everybody is clear that you have to manually test a test case. After it passes, you will automate, and I'll explain you why. You will understand it better when we do automation, but let me try to explain it to you. Maybe okay. Let's say we are testing Bank of America, and we go to the URL, and the browser doesn't open the Bank of America website. It's a bug.
Mhm.
How will we automate that? Can we automate it?
Okay.
No. Okay. Then we get to Bank of America screen, and sorry, I'm going to a wrong website. Same question for the next test case. So if I don't, so we are trying to test the login.
Mhm.
So manually we enter the correct login and correct password and clicked on sign on, okay? If this test case passes, I can automate it right away. But let's say if I put the correct login and correct password and I get an error message or I'm not able to log in, how will I automate? You cannot automate a functionality that is not working, right? You cannot automate a functionality. Once a functionality is working, you can automate it, and then if it stops working, you can catch it with that automation script, okay? So the point I'm trying to make is, you cannot automate it unless you take a risk that you know it's going to, otherwise you're going to waste time. So theoretically, you can automate from day one without testing it manually. You're going to waste a lot of time if the functionality is not working. then you wasted that time. So the right way of doing automation is you manually test something. After it passes, you automate it. Once it is automated, if it tomorrow that functionality breaks, your automation script will catch it. Because it knows what to look for. That's how it got automated. Okay? So let's say you manually test login and password. It's working. Then you automate it. Okay? 2 days later, that functionality is broken because of a bug fix. You can still run to automation and it will catch that it's broken. You don't have to manually test it.
So in other
Did I answer your question? Did you
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah, but in
Yeah.
this case, when the automation catch the bug, do we, as an automator tester, we send it to the
We
developer?
log a bug. We don't send anything to
Okay,
a
we
developer.
log
We
the
log a
bug.
bug and we assign it to a developer.
Okay, so we
Yes,
have
we
that.
have to do that.
Oh.
That has to be done manually. The
Oh.
logging a bug is not automated.
Okay.
You have to manually log a bug. Only part automation is it will test the functionality using automation. Okay?
So in other words, a brand new software is returned down there. That can be done only on manual.
See, again, I'm not saying it can only be done manual. It can be automated from day one. The person will not achieve anything. They will waste their time and they will waste the company's time and they will not make any progress. Versus, you manually test a test case, then you automate it. You manually test it, you automate it. Manually test it, you automate it. After it has
It's
worked.
passed.
So if it fails, you don't automate it.
I don't get in this.
Yeah, you don't automate that.
Content.
Only automate. The reasoning behind that is that you cannot automate something that is not working, and you don't know if it is working or not till you test it. Right? So I'll give you a second opinion on what I've said. So if a development manager or a project manager or a QA manager tells you, I want you to automate from day one. Okay. So the question, this is how you will handle that situation. You will say, I don't think it's a good idea because an application needs to pass, a test case needs to pass before I automate. I can start automating from day one, but I think it will be a waste of time and our progress will be really slow. The other word is, if you can guarantee that all the functionality is working, okay? You can send me an email with this guarantee that I know everything is working, yes, we can start automating, then we will not waste any time. I don't think he can give you that guarantee. Nobody can, okay? So that is the point I'm trying to make. Whether you can automate it, nothing can stop you from automating. You can automate at any time, anything, but it's of no use because you're going to waste your time.
But it is possible in Agile at the end of the sprint it can do.
So sprint one, now
And
this is Agile question which none of you will understand if you don't know Agile. So in sprint one, what you manually test, you automate that in sprint
At the end
two.
of the sprint.
In sprint two.
Sprint,
If the
yes.
sprint is ended, how can you automate? The
Okay.
sprint is ended, so you
Upgrade.
do it in sprint two.
Correct.
So sprint one, manually test the user story, sprint two, automate.
Yeah.
And then whatever you manually test in sprint two, you automate in sprint three.
Okay, fine.
So you still manually test and then automate. That's why I'm trying to, there are people who don't understand automation, who are not from the testing background, especially the developers. They say, why are you not automating from day one? So this is the answer that you give them.
So I have one question, like, we are recording only the passing test, right?
We don't record, first
I
of
mean,
all.
automating.
Yeah, don't use the word recording, okay?
Okay.
Anyone who teaches you to automate using recording, they don't know how to automate and they have no concept of automation. You never record. Recording of automation will never work in a real world scenario. Automation by recording will work in training classes. Automation using recording will never work in the real world.
Okay, my question
So use the word, we will automate. We will not record anything.
So we are automating using the passing test case.
Yes.
So in a case like we are testing it after 5 or 10 days.
No, we will not test it. As soon as it is automated, and it automates really fast.
So the failure, what will be the case of a failure situation? Like if you're giving a, so it will be automated if only we give the correct password and username, right?
Yes.
So if in the situation like if it is a wrong password and.
That's a negative test case. That test case also it passes, then you will test it.
So it won't come under automation, like.
It is under automation. So once it manually passes, you will automate it. So it doesn't matter if it's a positive or negative.
Okay.
After it has been manually
manually we
tested
have to do that.
and it has passed, then you automate.
Okay.
So then you will ask, what is the point of automation if we are manually testing? Somebody should ask me this question. If we are manually testing something and then automating, then what is the point of automation? Who can tell me?
So we don't have to
Retest.
repeat the process.
So we don't have to repeat it, and if anything breaks, we catch it, because we will have to redo. So to answer your question, manually we will only move forward, but the automation testers will do what you're saying.
The first.
First, every time. So once we automate, we are going to test from the beginning every day.
And that makes sense.
Yes, and the manual people will keep moving forward.
So every,
Automation will do it every day from the beginning.
So every company has two tester, automation and manual.
Not all.
Not necessary.
The same?
Some companies have only manual. Some companies have manual and automation.
One guy is doing.
And
both.
some company, they expect you to do both. One after, even if you're doing both, you still follow the process that I'm telling you. So mostly have manual and automation, but some companies have only manual, and then some companies have only, because the reason they have manual is not that they don't want it, they don't have people with the skill set who can do automation.
So if you found 15 bugs, for example, and developers fix it,
Yeah.
and we keep forward manual testing, but automation testing, he already automated 30.
The first 15 have failed or broken. So we'll catch it when we run the automation script.
So
So automation script will be run every day.
Yeah, but he could know which case is not working if we broken something.
Yeah, automation script. So automation script is for each test case. So when first 15 passed, right, we created the automation script.
Mhm.
Okay? On day 3, we will run that to check the first 15.
So if we done 30 scripts, so just cases.
We can't do 30 automation, right? We can only do 15 because 15 have passed. We only automate the past ones.
But if it's not like a one line, like a second is broken, is not working, like 6 is not
Yeah,
working.
so we will not automate something that is not working.
Oh yeah, you just.
So we will only automate what is
Those who
working.
Okay.
Yeah. If one is dependent on the other, which is broken, we cannot automate the other one because it is dependent on that. So we only automate the one that is because you can only automate a functionality that is working. You cannot automate a functionality that is not working. What is automation? The tool does testing for you. What are you going to tell the testament? If your browser is not opening, how do you tell the tool to look for sign on and login and password when it's not working? You can only tell the tool to look for it when it is working, right? So that's why you cannot automate.
I have a question. Okay, on the first one, when we did, when we have the 15 passed and 15 failed, and we have written a bug and passed it on to the developers, and developer is fixing. During the fixing process, they had to modify the one which is already passed.
Yeah, they always do that.
Okay, passed. But if you write automation which we passed already, when you get the second file from the developer, it's already been changed.
Yeah, it
How
will
that
fail.
is being-
Then if the functionality is not working, it will fail. Your
It will
automation
fail
script,
in
your
automation.
automation script will fail and you log a bug.
Automation, it failed in
Yeah,
automation.
yeah,
Okay.
you will log a bug. That's how you're catching the. So if they break something that is passed, that's what your automation script is going to catch, and then you log a bug.
But you have to check again manually what we fix it, right?
Yeah, that part you have to manually test.
Validate.
Validate. Yeah. All right, we are done for today. So tomorrow we're gonna finish SDLC. Then you will do your planning is done. You're ready for test execution. At that time, you get the software URL if it's a web application, and you start executing your test cases. Okay, executing test cases means you follow the steps of what you have documented, and you pass or fail your test case based on your actual result. So when you have your test cases, you have steps and expected result, right? So you follow the steps to test, okay? And you see what the actual result is. If your actual result does not match your expected result, then your test case will fail. If the expected result matches the actual result, then your test case will pass. Okay? And all this is done, I'm showing you in Excel, but all this is captured in test trail. Okay, so that's what test execution mean. You have your test cases ready, the software is available for testing, you follow the steps that you have documented, you have the expected result, and then what is actual result? What you see when you're testing is your actual result. So if your expected result matches your actual result, you pass the test case. If your expected result does not match the actual result, you fail the test case. As soon as you fail the test case, you log into Jira and you log a bug. Okay, that's the process. And then you assign that bug to a developer. Okay, so that's the process of test execution. Okay.
So it's tester should assign.
Tester assigns the developer. You have a list of developers. When we learn Jira, you'll see there's a list of developers, and you assign it to the developer who's working on that functionality. How do you know which developer is working? You've attended all these meetings with them, right? So you know which developers, and you have the project plan in front of you. You know which developer is working on which functionality. So that's how you assign the developer. So I would say execute test cases. I'm going to talk about capture results, what capturing result is. Now, we will go into detail when we learn test trail. What does capturing result mean when you execute a test case? So first thing about capturing result means if the test case has passed or failed. That is the first part of the result. The second part of the result is, now a lot of companies want you to capture the evidence that the test case has passed. Okay, and capture the evidence that the test case has failed. Actually, test case failed, you don't have to capture the evidence in test trail because you're already capturing it in Jira, right? So how do you capture a result when you are passing a test case? We'll go into detail when we do test trail. I'm going to show you how to do this. But capturing result means when you have executed a test case, you see a screen which proves that your test case has passed. For example, you're testing that you open a browser and you put Bank of America URL and it takes you to the Bank of America homepage. That's your test case. How do you capture result? You take a screenshot of the Bank of America page and you attach it to your test case in test trail. What will that prove? That will prove that you've tested it and you have the screenshot attached. Why do you now? It's very, very easy for people to go lazy and not capture the result thinking that it has passed. It will come and bite you later. Why? If somebody says you did not do the testing, okay, what evidence do you have to prove that you did it, right? Nothing, right? So it's good
Every time you have to.
yes, to capture results for your safety, okay? Nothing might happen, like you might not capture results and there'll be no problem, but you don't want to take that risk because things do break. Things that are working do break in the future. So you have the evidence, you can say when I tested it was working fine.
So should be evidence for each test case?
Each test case, yes. I'm going to show it to you how to do this, okay?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So what were your
We are doing SDLC, Software
SDLC.
Development Lifecycle,
yes,
testing
the
phase.
testing phase?
Yeah. We're going through the testing phase. So we installed a lot of softwares. I don't know if you have them installed.
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. There is one more step that was not in the video. I can help you do that during the break.
You are talking about the SQL Server?
Yeah. You did that step?
It was very difficult and my husband helped me.
No. Not the installation, the configuration part. Which
The
is not,
server one? you're talking
no, the
about?
Northwind database and Pubs database.
Okay.
Anyways. Okay, so we are in the testing phase right now, and testing phase has two parts. One is called test planning and test execution. So execute test cases, capture results. Okay, that's what you're doing. Capture result. What does capturing result means? Pass, fail, and screenshots. Screenshots. Okay. Now there is something called test status report. How does it work? It gets generated using test trail. So we are going to learn how the test status report gets created. So every day that the work you do, passing, failing of test cases, you run a report through test tray. Now you don't run it individually, you run it as a team. So one person from the team runs it and sends it over to all the stakeholders that this is what we did today. What does the status report include? Total number of test cases, total pass, total failed, and the open bugs that you have. So you send it every day. Depending on the company, some companies want you to send it every day, some want to send it twice a week. So whatever the process in your company is, you do that.
What's the average number of QA personnel involved?
It's different. Every IT project is different. Every company is different. It depends on the size. There's no average size. There are places where you have 1 QA, there are places where you have 25 QAs, depending on the size of the project. So execute test cases, capture, everybody's clear what this means? Executing test cases, capture results, capturing result means pass, fail, and the screenshots of evidence. Okay, then generate and send test status report. So we're going to do all this in class, so you'll know exactly how to do it. Generate and send test status report. Why do we send this? So that everybody in the company, all the stakeholders know the progress of the QA team. Okay, that's the reason for that. Now, so the other thing you do while you're doing test execution is bug review, bug or defect review meetings. What is a bug review or a defect review meetings? Now, ideal scenario, which never happens, you don't need this meeting because you log bugs and developers will fix them and you retest them. So there is no need of a bug in an ideal scenario, which doesn't happen. So why do you need this bug or a defect review meeting on a weekly basis or on a daily basis, depending on how good the developers are? Who decides this? The QA manager decides how often do we need it, or do we even need it at all. So ideal scenario is everybody's logging bugs, developers are on top of it, they start fixing them and fix them quickly, you don't need this meeting. If the developers are not fixing the bugs, either you're blocked for proceeding in your testing, or a large number of bugs are piling up and they're not getting fixed. You need these meetings to tell the developers that because you're not fixing the defects, it's slowing down our progress and the project will not finish on time. So let's review the bugs. If you have any questions about the bugs you don't understand, we'll explain it to you. If you're not sure about the priority of a bug, which we'll learn what it is. So in other words, the whole purpose of this meeting is to tell the developers, please start fixing them. Otherwise, we'll never be able to finish this project. That is the purpose. You have a list of bugs, you review with the developers to give them more understanding if that is the problem in them fixing it. And you ask them, how soon do you think you can fix them? So so nothing in IT is verbal. Verbal means nothing, okay? So in Jira, when you're discussing a bug, you'll make a comment that according to the developer, this will be fixed in 2 days or 3 days. So we have evidence that when we have the next meeting, if they don't fix it, you can tell them that, see, now the project is going to get delayed because of you. So you capture everything in the defect in Jira. So that's the purpose of this meeting. Okay, so now all test cases done, all testing done, all bugs fixed, okay? We are done with testing. You have a final test summary report. Final test summary report is nothing but your final status report that you send every day. Your final summary report is your final status report. Total number of test cases, total number of test cases passed, failed. Shouldn't be any failed at that time, but if there are still failed, what test cases have not been tested, okay? And any open bugs that still remain, okay? We had this discussion, so something you need to understand. Ideal scenario, all test cases are executed. All bugs are fixed, all test cases pass, that's the perfect scenario. It hardly ever happens, okay? So now there is pressure on the project manager and on the company to deliver a software to the client on a promised time, okay? You as a QA engineer have no control over it when the software is delivered, okay? Your job is not to deliver softwares on time. So you should be very clear about your role. Your role is to test the software really well, make sure that all the bugs are found, and then hopefully they are fixed. And so you are responsible for improving the quality, okay? One thing I want to tell you right now is, if you get any pressure to do things quickly, don't fall for it, okay? Because you cannot do things quickly. If you do things quickly, you'll miss out on something, and then you'll be blamed, okay? Delivering the project on time is the project manager's responsibility. He gets paid more than you, let him figure it out, okay? Anyone puts pressure on you that deadline is approaching, please finish the testing. The best answer to give is, if I do it quickly, I'll miss on something, I'll miss some bugs, and it'll increase the risk. Okay, that's all you need to tell them, and they'll back off. Very, very important to learn. Your job is to do a good job at testing, to finding the bugs, because if you miss anything and it goes to the client, guess who will be blamed?
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna ask you were trying to make sure that the project is not delayed, you were trying to do things quickly. Nobody's gonna talk about that. They're only gonna talk about that you did not do your job right. Okay?
Does it really happen in the real time?
Yeah, that's why I'm giving the example. This is from my experience, that your job is to do a good job at testing, okay? People tell you, now let me give you a scenario, okay? Which is very common. You have 3 months planned for testing, okay? The whole team has 3 months planned. Now the development team delays the development for whatever reason. Design team delays it for, guess whose time gets cut short? QA,
Yeah.
because the delivery date hardly ever changes, okay? Now you have planned testing for 3 months, suddenly you have 1 month, okay? Which is fine. Now, when you learn writing test cases, there is a field called priority. When we learn that, so you will run the high priority test cases first. At any stage, when a deadline is approaching, make sure you have your eggs in order. What does that mean? You have a clear status report from test trail, a list of all open bugs. So at any time the company wants to deliver the software, you have all the evidence ready. I have only executed, or we have only executed 100 out of the 300 test cases. These are the open bugs, and these are the test cases that have not been executed. If you want to deliver it to the client, that's fine. But if tomorrow you come and ask us that why do we have these bugs, we've already told you these bugs are open. So that's how you do your job. Okay, concentrate on what your job is. So final test summary report is your final report that they ask you before they are ready to deliver the project.
Question. if I have suddenly 1 month, so are they going to tell us to go and do it at your home, or?
That depends on the company. Okay,
Yeah.
again, there's no correct answer for that I can give you. If you're a contractor, okay, if they ask you to work extra hours, they will pay you extra. If you're a full-time employee and they make you work extra in certain, then they will give you comp time off. What does that mean? If you work Saturday and Sunday, then you will get 1 or 2 days off during the week. But you don't get paid extra. Full-time employees don't get paid extra, but they'll give you comp time off. And there are times, I would say throughout the year, maybe 3 or 4 weekends throughout the year that you'll have to work at a general average kind of thing. But every company is different. Usually, federal government, they have a very good plan. They have a lot of money. You'd hardly ever have to work overtime. Small companies, private companies, yes, you'll have to do it sometime. Okay? So any questions on test execution? So here I'm going to put a note. When you're executing test cases, you're performing different types of testings, which we're going to learn after test cases. So your test cases are based on different types of testings. So each type of testing has a different set of test cases from the test plan. So that's pretty much the test phase. Now you have a final build. Let's say all the testing is done. You have a final build for BOA called 250.exe. So this is an internal number for the company. For the client, this becomes Bank of America release 1 or version 1.0. Okay, so client is given this as version 1.0. And the same code in test environment is deployed to production. And everybody starts using it. Okay, any questions? Otherwise I'll move forward. Now, next phase is deployment. What is deployment phase? Now, depending on the size of the software, okay? Some softwares are huge, right? So a deployment plan is created. It's not a project plan, but it's created something similar on Microsoft project. Who creates the deployment and who does the deployment? So in big companies, they have a separate deployment team. Okay, there's a deployment team whose job is to plan the installation of the software in production. Okay, that's what the deployment team does. Now, small companies don't have a separate deployment team, so they form a team of developers who will deploy it. Okay, so big companies have a separate deployment team. Small companies ask the developers to deploy the code. Now, what does deployment mean? Deployment means there's a plan created and they do a dry run because they don't want deployment to go bad in production, right? So they create another environment, another server, where they deploy the code, make sure everything works fine, and then deploy it in production. Now, what do you do during deployment? Again, it depends on the software. First, you have all the prerequisites in place. What are the prerequisites? Can anybody tell me? What are the prerequisites for a software? A software might have a prerequisite like Java. For this application to work, we need Java installed. Okay, that's one of the prerequisites. Not every application is different. I'm just giving you an example. So let's say for Bank of America application, the prerequisite is there should be Java installed. Like for Selenium WebDriver, Java is a prerequisite, correct? Similarly, that's the example I'm giving you. For Bank of America, let's say Java is a prerequisite. Oracle database is a prerequisite. Or SQL Server database has to be installed, okay? Any third-party tool that needs to be installed. So that is what a deployment phase is. You have the whole plan of how the software will be installed, okay? And you do a dry run. Dry run means you are installing on an environment which is not production to make sure everything falls in place, okay? And if everything goes well or you run into problems, then you fix them. So once you have a clean run of deployment, then you deploy it in production. So deployment means installation of the software in production environment. You open the door, it's very hard. All this will become clear. This is just a high level right now. I'll go into more details when we go through the training. Okay? So deployment is installation of the software in production. The software that you have built, you need to install it. That's what deployment is. Now, what role does a QA person play in deployment? So not everybody from the QA team. One person is asked to do some testing. Okay? We call that testing smoke testing, which you will learn what it is when we do different types of testing. I'll give you an example. Smoke testing is just to check high-level functionality. Everything is working. You don't do testing all over again. You've already performed the testing, right? So you only do a high-level testing, make sure everything is in place. And then the company is told the code is deployed, it's live, which you say going live, and you can start using it. Next phase is maintenance. What happens in maintenance phase? Very important role for the QA to play here. So maintenance is done by a team called customer support or a help desk. So in some companies they are called customer support. Some companies they are called help desk. What is their job? So you are a customer of Bank of America. You are using the website. you run into some problems, okay? You call the 1-800 number. Customer service or help desk picks up the phone. Now, when you run into a problem using a software, there are usually two reasons. Either you don't know how to use the software, you need training how to use it, or there is a problem with the software. Those are typically the two reasons, okay? Either you need help to use the software correctly, or there is a problem in the software. So if you are not using the software correctly or you need somebody to help you, the customer support will help you. This is how you do it, or they'll give you a workaround. This is how you check, right? Or if your password has a problem, they'll help you reset it. That's the job of a customer support or a help desk. Now, let's say you've run into a problem which is actually a software bug. Now, these people are trained. These are technical people, customer support for IT. They're not as good as the developers, but they understand if the problem is a software bug or it is the customer needs some training to use the software. So if it's a training issue, they will tell you how to use it, walk you through, you'll be fine. Or if it's a software bug, they will give you a workaround. Okay, this functionality is not working, but you can go there through a different route, and we have noted down this problem, we'll be fixing it very soon. Okay, so let's say it's a software bug that's found in production. That means we missed it during our testing. So that bug gets logged into a tool like Jira, okay? And it's not called a bug at this stage, it's called a ticket. So a ticket is opened, okay? If the customer support feels it's a software bug, they'll open a ticket, give all the details of the problem. This ticket gets assigned to the QA manager, okay? QA manager assigns it to a software tester or a quality assurance analyst. They recreate this issue in the test environment, okay? If they are able to recreate this problem, then it's a bug, correct? It is assigned to a developer will fix it, okay? Then the code gets deployed in the test environment, testing team tests it. Once the code is passed, it goes to production. So you see those, if you try to use these softwares at odd hours on the weekends, you'll see these applications like Bank of America are not available. If you try to log in at 3 a.m. on a Saturday, it says down for maintenance. What do you think is happening at that time? They are getting newer software builds with bug fixes or some small feature changes.
Yeah, but when the ticket goes to QA department, so he's gonna do it manually or?
Yeah, manually recreate that bug. They will recreate that bug.
So
If the bug is not recreatable, then they'll say, sorry, I don't think it's a software bug. We cannot recreate it. So you need to figure it out. Or they will say, yes, it is a bug. We can recreate it in our environment. So we will have it fixed.
okay, so let's say that we developed we tested the bug or whatever. In that stage, it's called bug, but when we release it to the client and they find an issue, that becomes a ticket?
It becomes a ticket initially because we don't know if it's a bug or not.
I see.
Why is it a ticket? Because a customer has reported something to the help desk.
Okay.
The help desk thinks it's a bug. Okay? See, if a help desk person can help a customer solve the problem, they still create a ticket for their,
Testing.
not for their testing, for their boss to show them that they've done some work. That's a separate ticket. So let's say I'm customer support. I'm helping you. You're a customer. I'll still create a ticket, but I'll close that ticket. Why? Because I've already helped you and you're fine with my help,
That's
right? So ticket is just to show the work that I have done. Now, if you find something that I'm not able to help you because it's a software bug, it's not something that you are not doing right, then I open another ticket, but I don't close it. I assign it to the QA team.
I see.
Okay? They will try to recreate that same problem. If they are able to recreate it, then it's a bug, right? Then it gets assigned to developer. They fix it and retest it. So it's not. So you have to understand this process. After a bug gets fixed, it doesn't go to production directly. First, you test it in the testing environment. Make sure it is working. Then you move it to production. So what is QA's role in maintenance is to recreate the bugs that are found in production and make sure they are actual bugs and then retest them after they are fixed before they are deployed in production. What is disposition? Disposition is the last phase. So all these softwares, whether it is Bank of America or it is any other software that you build for the client, a good example of disposition is Microsoft Office. Okay? If you buy, or Windows or Microsoft Office. If you buy Windows, let's say you bought Windows in '98. Okay? You bought Windows software, you are using it. If you read carefully, it says we only support it for 5 years. Okay? It's written in small print. So what happens is, if you're using Windows 98 and you had a problem using it, you call customer support, they will help you solve the problem. Or they'll say it's a bug, it'll get fixed in a few days. After 5 years, if you call them, they'll say, sorry, we no longer can support you. You have bought the software, you can keep using it, but we will not provide any support. If you want our support, you have to buy the next version,
The new level, yeah.
which is 2000. Okay? So that is called disposition. Disposition of software is when the company that has sold the software or built the software does not provide any support. Now let me translate into Bank of America. Okay? So I'll give you an example of a mobile application. So let's say you're using a mobile application, and as soon as they stop supporting that version, there's an automatic update. So your application gets automatically updated. What is that update? The update usually has bug fixes, okay, and some new features. Any new features. New feature could be just look and feel change. They've just redesigned it to look better. Okay, so that's what disposition means, when the company stops supporting a particular version of the software. Why? Because they have, if they cannot support, so let's say, just an example, I'll give you, come back to Bank of America, let's say, let's talk about Uber. Uber has had, I think, or iOS software for your iPhone, has had more than 10 releases, right? It came with, iOS came with version 1, version 2, 3, 4, now we are in 11 or 12, I think 12, right? Now, they cannot, Apple cannot support each version, correct? So they do not support the previous versions. They keep giving you new versions with all the bug fixes and new features. So if you call them, Apple, that I have an old phone, I have iOS 4 on it, I'm having some problems, or you go to the store, they'll say, sorry, we cannot support you. You have to install iOS 12. So when you install iOS 12 on your iPhone 4, your iPhone 4 will stop working because it cannot handle this version. So you have to buy a new phone. So this is, you can call it a marketing technique.
Yeah.
So first they'll say we don't support the older version. They cannot stop you from using it. You can use it as much as you want, you bought it, you paid for it. They will not support you. They will ask you to update the software. They'll say you update it, if there is a problem, we'll support you. As soon as you update it, your phone will stop because the phone cannot handle the latest version. So they'll say now you have to buy the new phone. So that's how software companies do it. So let's say another example. I am a software company that's building a software for you, you are the client. So I sell you a software for, let's say, 500,000 for 5 years contract. So anything goes wrong, any bug fixes, I'll fix for 5 years. After 5 years, I'll say, I'm sorry, I cannot support you to fix those bugs. If you find anything after 5 years, you can keep using it. But if you want my support, you'll have to buy the next version, which is version 2, and it will not be for 500,000, it will be only for 100,000, but I'll support you for another 5 years because that's how they sell, and this is called the disposition when a version is no longer supported.
So when in the iPhone it says update, you should not update them.
See, that is, I will not say you should not update it.
I'm not updating, but that's.
So see, I'll tell you, there is an advantage and there is a disadvantage. You have to think about it, what works for you. So let's say I have iPhone X, it's the latest phone. So I don't mind going to version 12 or 13 or 14 because I know this is the latest phone. I have an iPhone 6 also, okay? I don't update that. Because iPhone 6, if I update, it'll go slow. So my iPhone 6 is, I think, at version 7 or 8 even now, and it is working perfectly fine. So yeah, older phones you should not update.
should not update.
Yes. Okay, so this was to give you an overview of how softwares are built, which is called software development life cycle. through the waterfall methodology. Okay? Now, one thing I want to tell you is, this is a cycle. This is a cycle. What does that mean? After version 1 is done, version 2 has already started. Okay? I don't know if it has occurred to you, what do you think the boss VP of the company is doing when we are in these phases?
Planning for the next.
What do you think the business analyst is doing after the requirements phase? What do you think the project manager is doing after the planning? They start planning for the next release.
Project, oh.
Next release. Release 1.0, release 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0. So this is a cycle till the whole product is built perfectly. Okay? So now, testing, we have, if it's a big software, it's a very common thing. So let's say we all are a QA team, okay? Release 1 testing is going on, okay? So the QA manager will have half of us test release 1, or 75% of us test release 1, because that is important. The other 25% of the team will be asked to attend the requirements review meeting for the next release, design review meeting for the next release, and start writing the test cases for the next release. So somebody asked me a question, do we test our own test cases? The answer is yes and no. Yes, if there are few people in the company and the QA team, then yes, you usually end up testing your own test cases. But if it's a bigger team and the application is huge, you might be asked, okay, you have written your test cases, why don't you give him test cases to run or test, and you start writing test cases for the next release. Okay, so your test cases have to be written so that somebody else can read it and follow. Okay, I'll give you 2 or 3 minutes to think about it. If anything in the process, we will cover all this in detail, more detail, but anything that does not make sense or anything that you're not clear about the process of how software is built.
I have a question. In the testing stage, so let's say we have multi testers, right? So each tester has different
Functionality to test.
right?
Yes.
So one write a test case and the other one test it, and one other one comes with a result. There's no tester who does everything, like basically.
See, it depends. It depends on the team's size.
I
Okay,
see.
so I have seen the same software tester writing the test cases and executing it.
I
Okay,
see. Okay.
I've also seen big teams where you are working on either multiple projects or you have the next release coming up. So somebody from the team, now it's the manager's responsibility to figure out which QA tester is good at writing test cases. So they will assign them to write for the next release, Okay? Now, QA teams are very small also. I have seen companies where you have only 1 QA tester because it's a small application. You have 2, you have 4, you have 6, you have 8. I have seen a team with 20 QA testers
So
also.
when you work alone, it's more responsibility.
It is more responsibility, you learn a lot, and it is an advantage also. So, let me take this off, I'm very. One thing I want to tell you before we move forward, so there's a lot of information we're going to cover in this training, okay? I will be sending you assignments on the topics that we cover in that week, okay? It is your responsibility to revise what we have covered in the past. So you should never be in a position where you feel that the assignment finished in 1 or 2 days, I have nothing to do. You always have the previous topics to revise, okay? So let's say we move on to test cases. I give you an assignment for the test cases, and for this, you always have to keep revising the previous things because otherwise you'll forget. Now in this waterfall, we learned a lot of new terms. So you need to learn those new terms. Okay, the best way is to write them down. Once you understand this, I think 50% of training is done if you understand this process very clearly. Okay, if you understand exactly what each team member does, what happens in each phase, what is the responsibility of a QA tester, 50% of your training is done right here. But you have to understand each and everything very, very clearly. Everything will become very easy if you get this. And obviously agile, the other way of building software, which we haven't done. Okay, if no questions, any questions on any phase? Okay. Let's start with writing test cases. So you can open TestRail. So you should have this project request a card created. Now, just to let you know, we have two parts in TestRail. One is called dashboard, the other is administration. Now, at your job, you will not have access to administration because you won't be the administrator. You'll only have access to the dashboard. So, right now, since you are the admin, you have administration access. All you're going to use administration is to create projects and nothing else. Once your projects are done, you don't need to go to administration. Okay, to do anything. So administration is only to create projects. All the work will be on the dashboard side. Alright, so just follow what I'm doing and then we will do it together. I'll do it and you guys can follow how to write test cases. Let me show
Your
it.
screen is different than mine.
Huh?
Your test rail is different.
No, you haven't created projects. That's why you need to
Oh,
create
I
the
click on
project. Yeah. So you should create projects. I have sent you the email with the projects.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. So just follow what I'm doing. You don't have to do it with me. Let me show you one time and then you can do it along with me. So I'll click, I am on the dashboard, and I am going to click on request a card. Okay. And I'm going to test cases. So when I go to a particular project, I'm going to go do it again. So I am going to a particular project called request a card. Now there are multiple ways to navigate in TestRail. Okay. Either I click on request a card and then I click on test cases. Okay, that's one way. The other way is I click directly on the test cases under request a card. It takes me to the same place. Now don't worry about all the other tabs, just ignore them. Concentrate on two tabs: test cases, test run and results. And forget about everything else, you never use them. Okay? These are the main: test cases, test run and results. Okay? So test cases are this tab where you write your test cases. Okay? So when you're doing your test planning. Test run and results is where you execute the test cases and capture the results. Okay? So I'm going to write a couple of test cases. So we'll write test cases for request a card. Okay? So for this screen, I'm going to write a few test cases and then I'll ask you to write them. So we've discussed this before. So the first test case that I'll write for request a card is, I will click on add test case. Okay, add test case. So I'll click on add test case. And now what are the different fields of a test case? Now when you're writing a test case, to make your life easy, you should give every test case a title. Okay? Why do you give a test case a title? Because when you have 500 test cases, a team has 1,000 test cases, you don't want to go to each test case and see what you're doing. Your title should be so clear that it tells you what you're doing. Okay? So my first test case title, and everybody will have a different title. Okay? Everybody will write test cases differently. No two people will write it the same. As long as it is clear, that's what is needed. So the first test case, the title of the first test case is, no, for Bank of America, it's already, there's no download, it's a web application. So we'll say, navigate to the Bank of America website. You can give many titles. This is just one of them. Navigate to Bank of America website. Alright. Now, what are the other fields? Section, leave it as test cases, template as test cases, type. Now, we have not done the different types of testing yet. Okay. Once we do it, then you can go back and choose the right. For now, select functional. Whenever you're writing, huh?
You write wrong twice.
Twice? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
It was a bug.
So navigate to Bank of America website. So type is functional. Okay, you will choose functional till we learn the different types of testings. Okay, you will always choose functional for now. Very important field, priority. Why do you think we give a priority to a test case?
For developers.
Not for developers. The priority we give for the test cases is, if we have 500 test cases or 1,000 test cases as a team, or you individually have 100 test cases, what test cases do you think you should execute first? High priority. That is why you prioritize your test cases. When you have a short period of time, it is better to test high priority test cases versus low. It's okay to leave the low priority, but test the high priority. So you have to follow the test cases in a priority order. So, and we'll discuss what is a critical. We'll talk about this also. So right now, navigating to Bank of America website is a critical test case. Why? Because if you cannot navigate to Bank of America, you cannot test anything, right? So ignore everything for now, preconditions we'll talk about later. Let's go to steps and expected result, okay? So user opens a Chrome browser and enters the URL See, one thing you might feel, again, you might or you might not feel, that why are we documenting all this? Because your mindset has still not changed from a user to a tester. That's why if you're thinking this, then your mindset is still of a user. For this class, you have to drop that mindset of a user and start thinking as a software tester. Why are you testing opening a browser? And because this application does not exist, right? You are testing an application that is being built. So you have to test each and everything. This is not an application that is already built. That is why you are writing test cases in detail. When a new software is built, hopefully you have understood there are so many moving parts in a software. Okay? I'm gonna repeat that. So before we write test cases, I want you to be very clear about one thing. Why do you think software have bugs? Okay? The software can have bugs due to multiple reasons. Okay? Then we'll come back to the test cases. So that is the reason we have to write test cases, is so that software can have bug for multiple reasons. The most common reason is that the developer has made a mistake. Developer is human. When the developer is writing code, they've made a mistake. That's what reason number one why you have bugs. We'll come back to the test cases, but it's important for you to understand. Then only you will be interested in writing test cases if you understand the reason why you're writing test cases. Empty ones that I'm going to fill. why do you think software have bugs? So the reason we are learning to write test cases is to catch software bugs, correct? That's the whole purpose, that when we test, we should catch the bugs. First, you need to understand why softwares have bugs. So I'm going to go, it's not in the right order, but I'm going through each of them. So poorly designed or documented code means that the developer, programming errors. The example I gave you is programming errors. So when a software, so developer is also called a programmer. When a programmer is writing a software code, they can make a mistake. That is reason number one why softwares will have bugs, if their code is wrong. Now, the second important thing is miscommunication or no communication. What does that mean? Developers have reviewed the requirement and design documents. As testing team, you have reviewed the requirements and design document. Their understanding or interpretation of that document could be different than yours. Correct? I'm not saying who is right or who's wrong. Developer can interpret it one way, right? Your interpretation is different, the BA's interpretation is different. Correct? So that is another reason the way they have interpreted is wrong. That is another reason why software can have bugs. Number 3 is miscommunication. So programming errors is one, miscommunication, software complexity. The software is so complex, okay? It's very complex. So it is not easy for them to comprehend it the first time, okay? It's just very complex. The other thing that I want to talk about, there's one more point in miscommunication and communication is, as a developer, if you don't coordinate and communicate with other developers on a regular basis, okay? The way the developer's mindset is, and again, I'm saying from a QA's perspective, developers might not agree. Developers have a one-track mind, which is a good thing, to build a software. They only think of building a software. That's their thinking. That we'll write code, it will work perfectly, and we are building a software. They have a one-track mind. When they have that, and it's a difficult job to write code, they don't think of small things which might feel very small to you, like coordination with other developers, okay? I might be the best developer concentrating writing perfect code. If I forget to check in the code at the end of the day, my code will never make it to the software. Small thing, I forgot to check in the code into the build system. That is one reason for bugs. Reason number 2, I'm writing code in a file which was started by her, and I never communicate to her that I'm using the same file, okay? We don't talk, we don't get along well. She's writing code on a file, I am writing code on the file, okay? I check in first without talking to her. She checks in again. My code is overwritten because the file is the same. It's not kind of overwritten, so it will have a history of my file, but the build will pick up her file because her is the latest and
Same
greatest.
later, yeah.
After we figure it out, the mistake, we can always go back and change it, right? But let's say we don't communicate. We are writing code on the same file and we overwrite each other's code, right? That will create a bug. Another very common reason is changing requirements, okay? Now the right way of changing requirement is, as I've explained you, somebody has asked this, what if a requirement changes? Okay, the right process is the BA updates the requirements document, creates something called a change request, updates the BRD by showing what was before, what has it changed to now, clearly showing the difference. The design team goes back and makes that change. The developer goes back and changes the code, okay? So if requirements are continuously changing, it's very easy to make a mistake, make errors. So there are multiple reasons why softwares can have bugs. Now, one reason is not listed here, but I'll tell you, when you are fixing a bug as a developer, okay, it is your responsibility to write something called unit tests, okay, which we will talk about when we do different types of testings. What is a unit test? Just to let you know. When I write code as a developer, I have to write another set of code to test that the code that I have written is working fine. Why do I do that? Because tomorrow, when I fix a bug, okay, I want to make sure that the functionality that was working before is still working. There's no point of me fixing bugs and breaking the functionality that was working before. So that is another reason why we have bugs, okay? Trust me on this, if there were no bugs in the software, there would be no jobs for QA, okay? You can hire the best developers in the world and they cannot make a bug-free software because there are things that are not under their control. There are a lot of moving parts. So once you understand the reasons for bugs, then you will understand why we need to write good test cases and not assume anything because it's a new software. If you have seen Wells Fargo software working, that doesn't mean when you're testing Bank of America that will work. It's a new software being built. You need to test it with the assumption that nothing works till you see it working. That is how a software tester has to think. That nothing is working till I see it work by testing it. Okay, let's go back to test cases. So user opens a browser and enters the URL and clicks on enter. The system navigates the user to Bank of America website.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you wrote www, you put test
Yeah.
instead of Bank of America. Do you have to put?
I have made this up, but you should not put the production URL because you will never be testing in a production URL.
Chrome browser and
You will be
enters the
testing in a
URL
test.
www.test.bankofamerica.com and clicks on enter.
What's going on?
You have the navigator on. You have the, not navigator, you have,
Expected results.
this is for people who
The
can't see
expected
properly.
result after
It's called a
executing the
narrator.
test case.
Ah, okay.
Add test case.
So where should
Add
we
end
click?
next. Cancel.
Cancel.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
So why I have put test is because whenever you test in a test environment.
I see.
You don't test in a production environment.
I see.
So again, I'm telling you, if you find it easy to follow the way I am writing test cases, follow this way. If you find you have a better way of writing test cases, follow that. You don't have to follow my way. Once you write a test case, read it and ask yourself, will I be able to understand this when I'm testing the software? If the answer is yes, it's a good test case. If you're not able to understand, it's a bad test case. Okay? So user opens a Chrome browser and enters the URL test.bankofamerica.com, clicks on enter. The system navigates the user to Bank of America website with text box for username and password and a button for login.
So you can write fast.
Now, another thing I want to tell you, actually I should not tell you this, I want you to first learn, but since I have to tell you all the tricks, I'd rather tell you right now. Now, if you have a screen, okay, which has 20 fields, okay, right now I have written username, password, and login, right? There are 3 fields. What if there is a screen where you get to which has 20 fields, okay? Instead of writing those 20 fields, you can attach a screenshot and say test or validate that the following fields in the attachment are there. Okay, another way to write it. So I'll give you an example. So let's say instead of 3, there were 20 fields. I don't want to type 20 fields here. Okay?
And it's the same thing. You type
So
it
so
in.
what I'll do is I will take a screenshot of the UI mockup. right? Because right now the software is not there, right? Because we are writing test cases. I'll take a screenshot of the UI mockup and attach it here. And say, expected result, the system navigates to the screen as shown in attachment. Get it?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of writing the fields, you just say the system navigates to the screen with the fields as shown in the attachment.
This
And
is
you
the
are-
easiest way.
Huh?
This is the easiest way.
Yeah,
Like every time like copy and paste the same thing and put the picture there.
correct. So you can attach it. If there are 1 or 2 fields, you don't have to do that. You can write it. Otherwise, you can attach the screenshot of the UI mockup.
And you have to specify exactly for all of them, or how much whatever in there, right?
Yeah, whatever you're testing.
Okay.
If you like typing it, you can type it, or you attach a screenshot. But you have to. It should still be clear what you are validating.
Okay.
Also, lot of test cases you will see are repetitive. Okay? Are the same. So the best way to do is, and you will, so I'm confusing you guys. This was just an example. I didn't actually want you to write this. This was just to show you how to write it. Okay? Now we're gonna write for request a card, and you add a test case, it will get created. Don't do that right now. This was just to show you. Now you can follow along with me. This was just to show you how to do it. Now let's do it together. So let's go back to the dashboard and go to request a card and test cases.
Leave this day.
Okay? And click on add test case. I think we should all go together. If you're left behind, let me know.
Request a card. Request a card.
Because why are we going to request a card? You should know that. Because we are writing test cases for request a card. And you should have this in your QA folder. That's why we are going to request a card. Okay. So how do you write test case for request a card? So I'm going to say add test case. First test case is install mobile app request a card mobile app. Critical, functional, link. So title is, what is a title? Title is a one-liner that tells you what you are testing in the test case. Okay? So that when you have hundreds of test cases, you can look at the title and you know what you're testing. So install request a card mobile app. So type is functional, priority is critical. User clicks on the link to install the mobile app for request a card. Remember, this app is not available on App Store right now or Google Play. So user clicks on a link to install the mobile app for request a card. On their mobile device. So the user clicks on the link to install the mobile app for a request a card by opening the email on their mobile device. Expected result is the request a card mobile app is installed successfully. User, so steps should have a user action, and expected result should be the software or the system response. Okay. I will share my username password with you. You can go into my account and look at my test cases also if you're at home. Okay. So add test case.
So, can you tell me that again, that you are telling that attaching, you know, if you are
Yeah,
having more fields?
if there are more fields, you attach the UI mockup
Oh,
of the screen that you're writing the test case
just
for.
a screenshot and.
Just a screenshot, or if it's a PDF, you can attach a PDF.
Attach on the sides.
On the, I'll tell you where to attach
Okay.
when we get to a field like that.
I have a question. Where is the ID is being created? By automatically?
Automatically by the tools. So if you go back to test cases, you have a test case ID C1, and you have a title, install, request a card mobile app.
Question. I saw some test cases, they usually wrote on the Excel file. So we're not going to write anything in Excel.
You can write, if you want, you can write it in Excel and import them, and I can show you how to do it.
No, because that's the hardest part, like you have to write all of the stages, but this is organized, like.
Yeah, I can show you both the ways. I want you to learn the easy way. You have to make your life easy and do the best job you can rather than making your life difficult.
Yeah, this is
So why to write it in Excel and import it, right? There is a reason behind that. Sometimes it makes sense, and I'll tell you when. But right now, this is how you should write it. If there is a big update, so let's say you have 500 test cases, and in every test case, you have to replace the word apple with banana. Let's say a requirement has changed, okay? You were testing apple, now you're testing banana, so all your test cases that you have written, 500 test cases, you have to change apple to banana. So instead of going to 500 test cases and changing apple to banana, you export all your 500 test cases in Excel, do control find and replace everything, and then import it back. So in that case, it makes more sense. Agreed?
Yeah.
Instead of going to 500 test cases and editing. So at that stage, it makes sense. I'll show you how to do that.
So we just wrote it in test rail. So can we import these things to Excel?
Yeah, export. You don't import.
Export, sorry,
You
export.
export to Excel. Yeah, you can. You will do it when your test trail is expiring. You will do that, and then import it into your new account. Okay. So if it's taking you more than 1 minute to access test trail, you need to go practice bookmarks. It should not take you less than a minute to get to test trail. Can I continue?
Sure.
Let me know. Is it okay? Are you able to access?
Yeah.
See, what is important is I would like you to type along with me to write test cases. If you're not able to type fast, it's okay. Just follow what I'm doing, okay? And you will have access to my account. I'll send you my username, password, and you can look through my account and look at it. So install, request a card, mobile app. What is the next test case we should write?
Start run, like.
So next is first you install the mobile app, and then you click on or tap on the app icon, and it should. So one thing I want to add here is, so I'm going back now. How do I, if I made a mistake in the title, how do I edit it? Okay. So I will click. You see this pen next to it? I'm just changing it for the heck of it so that you know. So I'm editing it and I'm saving. This is how I edit the title. Okay? click on this here. Now let's say I realize I missed something in my test case. Okay? So how do I edit the test case? Multiple ways to do it. You click here and you go back to your test case. And the application icon displayed on the mobile device screen. Okay, I'm just editing it and I'll do save test case. Okay. Now I'm going to add another test case. Okay?
Yeah, too far.
Too fast? Okay, I'll go slow.
So after you edit it, you save it or what?
Yeah, I saved it. So this is how you edit it.
Okay, go, yeah. Yes.
Okay?
Editing the title there.
So this is editing the title.
Okay,
This is editing the test case.
okay.
Okay? So you go and so do you save after you edit your Word document? So you have to save your test case also if you edit it.
Can I read what did you write
Yeah.
on the app?
Sure.
Okay.
And
So the wrong way to learning the test cases is copy what I'm writing. That way it will be difficult for you to learn to write test cases. How the approach that I want you to take is, first you understand the functionality of the application that you're trying to write test cases on. Okay? Do not attempt to write test cases on request a card if you don't know how the functionality works. Okay? I'm going back to the first principle. You will learn nothing if you start writing test cases for this without knowing or without planning how are you going to test it. You're going to waste your time. You can spend 10 hours writing test cases. It'll give you zero knowledge if you don't understand the application that you have to test. So first you have to understand the business reason of the application, plan your testing. What am I going to test? Okay? And then you write. We've already done that in class. We planned the testing for this. We've discussed it. That's why I'm writing test cases. So remember, till you understand the functionality of the application, till you make your own notes of how you are going to test the application, you should not start writing test cases.
Okay.
Otherwise, it will be a waste of time. Okay? You will get stuck. You will not know what to write. So how do you plan this? We've gone through this. This is a mobile application for grocery store to send you a discount card. First defect we found was that the first name should be first name. And then only when you enter information, send should be highlighted or cancel should be highlighted. These were the bugs. First thing you test a mobile application, make sure that it installs. Second thing you test is, so first is you make sure it installs successfully. How you install mobile applications that are not available on App Store because they are being built. When we do the live project, you will get links, so you get email. You get the link of the app in the email. So a separate link for Android devices, a separate link for iPhone. Okay? So you use the correct link and you click and it gives you instructions to install and it gets installed. That's how you install a mobile app that is being built, that is not available on App Store yet. Then you first test is make sure it gets installed successfully. You see the icon, right? Then you click on the icon to make sure that the application opens up. Okay? Then you enter all required fields. Click on send. Make sure you get to a screen where it says the card has been ordered. It will be mailed to you the next business day. Okay? So then you do it for all non-required fields. So first, before you, so if you get an assignment from me to write test cases for request a card, you should first understand the functionality, plan what you are going to test. How do you plan it? You can write it on a notepad. This is what I'm going to test. Whichever way you want to do it, that's your planning. So after this, we're going to write test cases for something application called Student Portal, which I'm going to explain you. Then we're going to write for demo workshop. I'm going to show you those applications also. So you need to first understand the functionality clearly. Okay. Now, you can, if you're not done, you can read through this. So I'm going to save this. Now I'm going to write the next test case. What should be the next test case? I just told you.
Just open the
App.
Yeah, click
Click
on
on
the
the link.
icon. Yeah.
So how did I, again, there are multiple ways to navigate, okay? So I am adding test case from here. Next time I'm going to show you another way of doing it. So second test case, I'm clicking on add case. Okay. Now the second is open open the request the card application.
Between the second. From the text to
Now let's discuss before we move forward, what is a critical test case, what is a high, medium and low test case, okay? This is the general rule that you should follow to give priority. Now, why are we giving priority? Because when we have a large number of test cases, we are going to start executing critical first, then high, then medium and then low. Because if you are not able to complete our test cases, it is better to have low remaining than to have high or critical remaining, right? Okay. So what is a critical test case? Any test case that fails, okay, and you are blocked from proceeding is a critical test case. Okay? So if the application doesn't get installed, it is a critical test case. Why? Because you can't test anything. If you cannot open the app,
That's critical.
that's critical. So anything that stops you from proceeding or blocks you from going to the next test case is a critical test case.
Okay.
Okay? A critical test case is any functionality that stops you, if it is not working, stops you from proceeding to use the application. So in Bank of America, opening the browser and navigating is critical. Logging in is critical. If you're not able to do either of the two, you can't proceed, okay? So that's how you define critical. What is a high priority test case?
The most important.
A high priority test case is functionality that is very important, that if it doesn't work, the application doesn't work correctly. But you can still proceed with your testing. Okay? So a high priority test case is a very important functionality for the application. If it doesn't work, then the application doesn't work correctly. I'll give you an example in a minute. But what is the difference between critical and high? So critical is also very important functionality. The test case critical is very important, high is very important. The only difference is critical, if the test case fails, you can proceed. High, you can still proceed, but it is very important functionality that needs to work. Okay? Medium, obviously it is not as important as high, and you can obviously keep proceeding. Low is usually if there is a typo, okay, or the button is not at the right place. It's not a functionality problem, it is look and feel problem, right? That's what a low priority bug is. So let me give you example. So critical is clear, right?
Yes.
Installing the app, opening the app is a critical test case. This also helps you when you're logging a bug. If it's a critical test case and it fails, your bug is critical. You have to give priority to the bug. It makes your life easy if you prioritize this correctly. Also, think of a situation, you have written 500 test cases. you have 3 months plan, suddenly you are told you have only 1 month to test. If you don't prioritize your test cases, which test case will you start with?
Critical.
No, that is if you prioritized it. If you've not prioritized it, you don't know, right?
Yeah,
Then
of
you'll be
course.
confused, you'll be struggling. Why? You don't want to test low priority test cases and leave the critical or the medium or the high ones, right? You should do the other way around. That's the reason.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the high priority, you said that we will have error, but we can proceed.
Yeah, it's an important functionality. So I'll give you an example once we come there.
Okay.
Okay, so these two are critical. So open request a card application. So what is the step? User clicks on the icon or taps. Taps is the right word. You don't click, right? You tap it. Taps on the icon for the request a card application. Now I'm going to give you the example of attachment. Now this is not the only way of writing the expected result. Okay, I'm going to write it one way and then I'm going to show you the other way. You decide which way you like it. So the application opens up and displays the screen as shown in the attachment. Okay, so the application opens up and displays the screen as shown in the attachment. So now I have, how do I attach? So I can either drag and drop, okay, or I can browse. So let's browse. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to go to my QA folder, go to request a card and attach it. Okay? So if you've attached any file, it's the same as any other application. Okay. Everyone knows how to attach a file?
Yes.
No.
No? Okay, this is how you attach a file. You click here, you browse to the request a card file in your QA folder and double click on it. So what are you trying to attach here?
The request card.
Yes. So you should know where that file is on your laptop first. Where do you think it is?
It's inside the folder QA.
Which folder?
The QA folder.
Yes, you have to browse there. So you know how to browse, right? You click here
Here.
and then you go to the QA folder and then select request a card and double click on it or open it.
Should I browse it now?
Yeah, just attach it so that you know how to attach it.
Okay.
It's a good idea to do it now.
Here.
Yeah.
Like this.
No, this one, the same.
Oh.
And you said also you can drag it, right?
Yeah, you can drag or drop it also.
From also the desktop to
Yeah,
the website and
yeah,
it will
yeah, it will work. You
successfully-
can try that if you want.
In here.
Yeah.
Request a card in Google Chrome.
So you can try dragging and dropping also. Okay.
So when he is going to open this case, when he is going to click it, it's going to show that the
Screen.
screen.
Yeah, see, watch. So let me come back to show you another way of writing this test case, but I'm going to do add test case. Now let's say if I ever have to see this, then I'll go to this test case, and you see this attachment?
Okay.
So, okay. Now you don't execute your test cases from here. You only write your test cases here. We will execute it from here. Okay?
So save this one.
Yeah.
Or add text.
What about the other field, like the preconditions and the?
We'll come to that. First, let's learn how to write basic test case. Then we'll come to precondition. Okay.
So for me, drag and drop, it did not work.
It will work because you need to make your windows small. Make both your windows small and then drag and drop. This is how I can show you how to drag and drop. Give me 1 second. So this is how you can drag and drop. I'm adding another case. So let's say I want to drag and drop something here.
Add another case.
So first I'll make this window smaller
Yeah, save and.
or drag it on the side, whichever way, okay?
Okay.
Now I want to drag this file over, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I should be able to see both.
That's what I did, okay?
Where is my something? Okay? So you see request a card?
Uh-huh.
Can we copy and paste as well, or?
I don't know if copy and paste will work, you can try it, but I think it is only browsing or drag and drop. I don't think copy paste will work.
I think it's gonna be.
But I've never tried it. It might work.
Copy is not.
You can test it.
Copy is
I'll
not
test
working.
it at home.
I already
I don't think
tried.
it'll work.
You
So
try,
that's
you
how you
test
drag
it.
and drop. Okay?
So you
Now,
have-
one thing I'm going to tell you, I'm going to show you, when we write test cases, you will realize it. Lot of our test cases steps will be repetitive. Repetitive means
Yeah.
not exactly the same step, but some changes. So how do you make your life easy? Okay, making your life tough is you open one window and go back to the previous test case, copy paste it and struggle, or open two windows of test trail. So copy from one test case to the other and make the changes. I'll show you how to do it right now. Okay? That is the easiest way to do it. Otherwise, you'll struggle going back, going forward, all that. So let's write the next test case. I'm going to show you. So click on add case. So this is how I showed you how to add another case. I'm going to show you another way of doing it. Okay? It does the same thing. If I do add case from here, it will only give me the title. So I will call it enter all required fields.
So we have to put the error.
Yeah, you can do it either way. You can add test case from here or from here. So if I add test case from here, then I have to either click on it and do edit from here.
But both are
The same thing.
same thing,
Which both?
like, you know, the add cases.
Yeah, both. It do the
Yeah,
same
that's what
thing.
I'm
It does the
asking.
same thing. Two different ways of doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So, functional. I will call even this critical. Okay? Why is this critical? If I cannot enter all required fields and submit the screen, application will not work, right? So this is also critical. So, user enters first name. I'm going to write the test data with it also. I'm going to use my name. So these two exit. Now, somebody might ask, why do we have to write the test data? Okay. In this case, even if you skip the test data, it is okay. But it might not be okay for other applications. So I want you to make it a rule to write test data also. Okay? Now, if the test data is really huge, you don't want to type, you can do the attachment of an Excel sheet. If your data is in Excel, if there's large data is huge, okay, you don't have to type it here. When you say enter data as shown in the attachment. Okay? Now, another example is why I said it's okay to not have data for this test case, but other test cases. So everybody knows what a first name is, last name is, address, city, state. What if an application says enter the SR number? Okay, you don't know what an SR number is.
Yeah.
You will know because you're testing the application, you've understood. But the person who's executing is, how do they know what is an SR number? Okay? So SR number could be alphabets, SR number could be numbers or a mixture of it. Or it is a specific 4-digit number. That is the functionality of the application. How does the person who comes in new knows what to enter? If a field in an application is called SR number or REF number, how will you remember what to enter, or how will a new person who is executing your test cases know what to enter for SR number? If the SR number only takes 4 digits, if you don't enter the test data, how will you remember when you're testing it that it has to be a 4-digit number? Are you guys following?
Mm-hmm.
One more time.
Okay. So if the field in the application was called an SR number, okay, which is a service request number, and the functionality is it can be only 4 digits. If you don't put the test data, how will you know what to enter it when you're testing it? That's why you put test data.
So in the steps here, you wrote the user enters first name and you specify a name.
Yeah.
Do we have to do that in Reels?
That's what I'm explaining you.
Okay.
Yes, you have to do it.
And what's the reason again? I'm sorry.
Because if the field was called SR number and it had 4 digits,
Oh, that's what.
what will you enter if you don't? So right now, you know SR is 4 digits,
I
okay?
see.
But you don't put it. After 1 month when you're executing it, you don't know what is the right value for it.
The first time.
So this is easy fields. First name, last name, anybody can make up things. But if an application has some specific fields, so let's say the application that I'm testing right now, it's called date of certification. There is a field, I'm going to show you my application also. The requirement of that is that the date of registration or date of certification has to be 1 year or less before the current date. That is the requirement. So let's say today is November 25th. The functionality is it can only accept a date which is today's date or 1 year previous. So if I don't put the date between that, and when I'm testing, how do I know what date to put in there? Okay. So there are certain fields that if you don't put the data, you will forget what to test. Okay? These fields you can skip if you want, but make it a habit of putting it so that you put it for every field.
And this information is in requirements.
Yeah, the information is in requirements, not what to enter, but what is the requirement of that field. That is in the requirement document. The test data is not there. You have to make up the test data.
So we'll be referring to that document while creating the test.
Yes.
So the test data we can get from the developer also. We have to make it on our own.
So for this, developer cannot help you. You will have to create on your own. But
Yeah.
when there is a lot of data, then you can ask the developer for help, which we'll talk about when we do SQL. For now, just think that you have to create it as a queue.
Rishi,
Yeah.
I see that you're putting from the name till the end of the requirement field. do you have to put it all in one step, or can you do it separate steps?
You should put it in one step.
Okay.
Because it's one form, right?
Yeah,
So
that's right.
it should be in one step.
Gotcha.
You can do it in separate steps also. It will be too much work.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
it's
if
too
we have
much.
that
You
would
can
be
do it. See, the test cases are, they have to be clear. That's what test cases are, that you should be able to read and follow when you're testing.
Когда ты это делаешь, смотри.
Now let me show you the example
Полупрозрачный.
that I was given.
Открывается. Нет. В самую правую стену. Видишь, полупрозрачное окно открылось. Значит,
А это?
А это в левую делаешь.
Спасибо.
И ты так каждую вкладку можно.
Нет, у меня что-то.
Нет, прям влево. Отпусти. Оно ровно пополам экран разделит. Единственное, что когда экран маленький, это не очень удобно.
Okay. So now I'll let you type this if you want. Now the next test case is going to be very similar to this. I don't want to type all this again. Okay? But I have to write it without typing. I don't want to type everything all over again. What is my next test case? Required and non-required field. Correct?
Yeah.
That's what we discussed.
Yeah.
So how do I'm going to copy this over the URL. I'm going to open two windows. Okay, I have two test trails open. Okay. Now I am going to save this test case first. Okay. So just watch what I'm doing. I'll open this again for you to type it down. Now I want to add. Another test case. I'm going to call it enter required and non-required fields. Okay. Now instead of typing everything all over again,
Can you see?
so I am not going to type everything all over again. I'm going to copy it from here. Okay. And I'm going to add telephone. Expected result is the same.
So how did you do this with the new title, like new test case?
Yeah, I just added a new test case and went to the other window, opened test trail and copy pasted it. I opened a new window and copied the URL. So I have two test trails open.
Gotcha.
And I copy from the first one and paste it. The expected result is the same. So this is what you should do when your test cases are similar. Instead of retyping everything. So you can write, if you want to write this down.
I realized that you put high in the last one. Is it because of a non-required field?
Yeah, because of non-required field. If you can put required field and it works, it doesn't work, it's critical. But non-required field, if it doesn't work, it's high. I don't think it's critical. Because you can still move forward with the required fields.
I see.
So we'll be writing test case only for the passing cases, right?
When you're writing test cases, you don't know if they're passing or failing.
We have to write for every criteria, like suppose if we are entering the name, like the name field where someone is entering alphanumeric data, that is an error, like.
Yeah, you can put, but I'll tell you, yes, you have to write it, but I'll tell you ways you can do shortcuts of writing, but yes, answer is yes, you have to write. See, when you're writing test case, you don't know if it's gonna pass or fail.
Yeah, okay.
So, you have to write for
But
every.
every chance of situation we have to write in a test case.
The second one, Johanna?
So, there are ways where you don't have to write each one, but in one test case, you can cover a lot. See, ideally, you have to write a separate test case
Okay.
for each situation.
Uh,
And you're not the only one who is writing, there are a lot of people writing for the application.
Okay.
Okay, so you're writing it for one functionality.
Okay.
And always you'll miss some test cases,
Hmm.
so when you're testing it, you'll realize that you missed some. Then you can add them at that time.
Or later, okay.
And Rishi, you had the same expected result,
For
right?
both.
For both, I see.
So for the next one, all you add the telephone number,
Yeah,
right?
because that's the non-required field.
Okay. But if you put it as a critical for the first time, that means becomes a required field, right?
Yeah, the first one is required field.
Oh, no, I mean, if you put it in we did two cases. If we put it enter all required field and we have the.
See, I'll tell you the reasoning behind it, and if you don't agree, we can discuss. So, why is this critical and this is high? Because if you enter all required field and you cannot proceed, it blocks you from using the application, correct?
That's correct.
If you enter required and non-required fields, and if it doesn't work, you're not blocked from moving ahead, you can go back and enter all required and it'll work.
Okay, gotcha.
That's why it is there.
So my question is that while I'm writing the test cases, can I do the same time also run the test?
How can you run the test in waterfall when the application is not ready? How can you test when the application is not? When do you think you're writing test cases in waterfall?
When I can see that this is the program he gave me.
No.
I mean,
No.
the software.
No.
No.
No, then you do not understand SDLC if you're thinking that way. So I thought you understood when we were talking about SDLC. When do you write test case? Which phase?
Like I have to know what is the what they want.
Which is when? Which phase you know that what they want?
When your all requirements is
Yeah.
yours, like
After
designs.
requirements. So you do not understand SDLC then. So you have to go back and listen to the recording and try to understand. How can you write test cases and execute at the same time in waterfall? The application is not even ready when you are writing test cases. How will you test an application that is not ready? In Agile, you can do that. What you're saying, we haven't done Agile. In Agile, you write test cases and execute at the same time. Not in waterfall.
Suppose the card is we are writing the test cases because we are watching the cards scenario.
This is, what do you call these cards? These are called UI mockup.
Okay.
Yes. When are they created? In design phase.
So I have to
Right?
see the design.
So
Mhm.
design phase, you have what you need to write the test case. In requirements phase, you get the requirements, and then you write test cases, which is called test planning. Okay? Once your planning is done, then you start executing when the application is ready after development phase. So test planning is before development is done, completed. So you do test planning in design phase, in planning phase, in development phase, is when you do test planning. This is test planning. And test execution is in your testing phase. When you get to the testing phase, then you start execution. So testing has two phases. One is test planning, when you're planning your testing, till the software is available. When the software is available, then you do execution. So in waterfall, you do not write and execute. How can you execute on a screen which doesn't work? Right? You have to wait till the application is ready. Agile is very different. So what you are saying is true, but for Agile, not for waterfall.
Because for waterfall, you said yesterday we have a lot of time for preparation.
You have a
It's
lot of time for preparation and very less time for
Yeah,
execution.
this is preparation.
This is preparation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you should use the time for preparation to understand the functionality, what are the different scenarios the application can be used in, and then test. Make sure that it is working correctly. You'll be surprised to see how many bugs a new application has. The basic things are not working.
Why?
Why? Because of the reasons I just told you. As a QA, you help build a good quality. You find all the bugs, they fix the bugs, that's how the application becomes
But
good.
developers should do it.
They should, but they don't. So that is why the QA role is very important, and there are thousands of jobs because the software cannot be built without QA testing. You find the bugs, then they fix it. That's how the application is built. Especially in Agile. You cannot have a team without QA, even in Waterfall, but QA's role is more important in Agile.
Easy example, when you're writing or typing, you have mistakes, a lot of mistakes.
So, okay, let me repeat this. I think people are not clear about Waterfall, okay? So, when we are writing test cases in Waterfall, we are writing test cases based on the UI mockups, the design document, the requirement document, right? And we are writing test cases during the test planning phase, which is the time when the software is not built, okay? We start execution when the development completes. So let me point out the timeline. So it's very clear. It's a good question you asked, because if you're not clear about this, then this is when the requirements are done. Okay? So you use the requirements to write your test cases. Then you also use the design documents. Use a combination. You can start your writing your test cases here, but you cannot finish them till this is done. Okay? So you need requirements document, you need design documents. So the best time you're writing test cases is during the development phase. When the development is happening, you're writing your test cases. Okay? When the development finishes, you start executing.
And executing and testing.
Testing. Executing test cases means you start testing. You have a, see, logically, you cannot test till a software is available to you.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to wait till the software is available to do the testing. So before we take a break, just wanted to, and you don't have to be overwhelmed with this, you will do it over the next 2 weeks. So one is request a card. We've already discussed all the test cases. I'm ready to discuss all over again so that you have clarity. I want you to write test cases for request a card. In the future, in the next coming weeks, if you finish this, you can do, there are 2 applications. I'm going to send you the URL for them. Okay, I'm going to send you an email. One is called, it's a vehicle insurance application where you enter your information and you get insurance for your car, for your automobile. Okay, I'm going to run through this application. Why I want you to spend time. It's a very, very easy application. In less than 15 minutes, you will know how this application works. Okay, it's so easy. Why I want you to spend, I'm going to send you the URL for this. I want you to spend time because I want you to write test cases on this, and this is the application we are going to automate. So till you understand the functionality, you will not be able to write test cases or to automate it. We're going to do automation testing for this application. So how does this application work? This is called the vehicle insurance. So you get an insurance quote. So what is the business reason for this is that if a person owns an automobile, okay, or a person owns a truck, or a person owns a motorcycle, or a person owns a camper, they can enter information and get an insurance quote for it. Okay, that's the purpose. It gives you an insurance quote. So let's say we are doing automobile. So you select the make of your car and you put the engine performance, date of manufacture, number of seats, fuel type, list price, license plate number, annual mileage. Next. So you were entering your vehicle data, right? Then you are entering the insurance data. Insurance data means your information. Okay?
And we have to do it on test trail, right?
Yes, you will be writing test cases. Right now I'm just showing you the functionality. It's a very, very easy application. We'll discuss how to write test cases also. I'm just giving you the overview. Then you enter so you put the vehicle insurance information, then you put your information or test data. You don't have to put yours, you can make up anything. Go next. So product, what product do you want? So what is the start date? How much do you want the insurance for? What insurance do you want? Which price option you want? Silver, gold, platinum? And go next. Then you put your email. One number and one place. So if I go back to my email, I will have an email with the insurance code. So the same thing, exact same thing you do with truck. The fields are a little different, but you enter the same information. Motorcycle, camper. So that's pretty much it. If you want, I can show you my email. It'll have the code.
So we have to do all of them.
Yes, so that's how you will learn the importance of automation. I first want you to play with the application manually so that you know how it works. Then write test cases for it, manual, and then we will do automation. We'll automate all that. This is the code here. Okay. Now that is one application, and again I said I just wanted to show it to you. I'm going to send you the URL. The other one is demo workshop. This is a mini Amazon. Okay, it's a mini Amazon. So you have different things. You can first register, log in, and add things to your cart from books, computers, electronics. Okay. So let's say if I log in, I already have a username, so you have to register. So I go to books, I select this book, I add it to the cart. I have one thing in the cart, then I go to computers, I go to notebooks, I add this notebook.
It's like Amazon, right?
Yeah, mini Amazon you can say. So then I go, I add more things, and then I go to my cart. I do checkout, agree. So this is how we test in the real world if we have to use a credit card for the payment, okay? So it will only accept the correct digit. So you take your card, change the last 8 numbers, okay? But it has to be the same digit. If you're testing this for a credit card, right? So take a valid card, put, let's say it's 16 digits, put the 8 correct ones and then change the other 8 so that it'll accept it. If you put anything else, then it'll not even accept it. That's how, if you want to use credit card, otherwise you can do cash on delivery. This is the application. So get familiar with these 2 applications so that you know how they work, because we'll be discussing how to write manual test cases and then automating it, okay? I want to show you. So this is not to scare you, but to tell you that I promise you, you'll be an expert doing writing this, okay? That's my promise to you. And it'll make it very, very easy for you. It might look complicated right now.
Looks weird.
Yeah, it looks weird, but you will be writing this and you'll become a champion in this. That's the promise. So let me show you what it is. We're on the right one.
So that's the automation, right?
Yeah, for the same application that I was discussing.
That's behind the scenes.
Okay, let me run with this in Chrome. I know, I was expecting God's name, but it'll become very easy. That's why I want to show you this, and then you will write this and you'll become a champion. It's so easy.
Okay.
Once you get.
Do you
once
have
learn.
to memorize some characters?
Nothing. You don't have to memorize anything.
Oh, thank you.
The system helps you write this.
Okay.
Hosla garing hosla.
It's not working for some reason. One second. It's for Chrome. Otherwise, I'll run with this.
So what's the difference in the colors? Something green, black, blue?
Oh, there's a lot of difference. Once we learn, I'm just showing you how it runs, if it runs. And then when you learn it, I'm going to tell you.
I'm sure the red one is starting red. And green is passing by. I don't understand that.
So I'm running it very fast. I can slow it down also so that you can see. So this is the automation to test this using Selenium.
You test it.
It's automatic testing.
This is called automation. Okay. So these are the 2 applications that I want you to spend time. So let's take a break. We'll come back, talk about the other test cases for request a card, and then how to write test cases for these 2 applications. This is where you write test cases. I'm going to discuss the other test cases, but I want you to write them on your own. Okay? I will also write them. I will share my username and password, but don't copy my test cases. You're not going to learn anything. Write your own test cases. If you get stuck, then come and look at it. Okay? But do it on your own. Now, this is where you write test cases. Okay? Now you don't have to follow it with me, just watch what I'm doing, and then the second time when I show you, then you do it with me, okay? Because, so let's say I have written all my test cases, okay? Let's say I have 20, 25 test cases all written, and now I want to execute these test cases because the software is ready. So what I will do is, I will go to test, run, and results, okay? I'll go to test, run, and results, and I will create a test run, okay? Test, run, and results. So you give it a name, the name of your project, request a card. And then if you see, it has a default selection called include all test cases, okay? So leave it like that. It will move all your test cases, whether you have 4 test cases or you have 10,000 test cases, over to test run, okay? So all I did was clicked on add a test run under test run and results. I gave it a name, request a card with the date, and there was a default include all test cases. As soon as I click on add test run, all the test cases from test cases for the same project are moved over to test run and results. You see all the 4 test cases are here. If there were 1,000 test cases, 1,000 will move. Okay? So all test cases come here. Now, once I have all the test cases, I can start testing, start execution. Okay? So how do you execute it? So you click on the first test case, okay? And you have the software available, so you follow the step. This is the step you follow to test, and this is your expected result, okay? If your actual result matches your expected result, then you click on add result and say passed, okay? Alright? And if you are done with the first, you move to your second test case, you follow the steps, you have the expected result. If the expected result doesn't match your actual result, then you fail your test case. Okay? Now, one thing I missed that you should do is when you pass your test case or fail your test case, you should, this is where you put the attachment. Screenshot of the evidence that this test case has passed. Okay?
And you have to write the comments.
You can write the comments if you want, but a picture is louder than words.
Perfect.
So if you have a picture of this, and everybody knows how to take a screenshot. If you don't, I can show it to you. It's very, very easy.
Sure.
Okay, I've showed it earlier, but I'm going to show it again. So let's say I want to take a screenshot of Bank of America. Very, very important to take a screenshot as an evidence. And I'll give you the reasoning behind it. I'll give you some real world examples. If you don't have your evidence, you can actually get into trouble at your job. So how do you take a screenshot? There is a tool called snipping tool. It comes with your Microsoft Windows. Okay? So you type SNI, okay? SN or SNI, whatever. It will take you to the snipping tool. You click on the snipping tool, okay? And you do new. And you highlight whatever you want to take a screenshot of. Highlight it, okay? And as soon as you leave it, it copies it over into a file, and you can save it.
You can also do control print screen.
No, you don't need to do that. This is easier. That is, yeah, you can also do control print screen. I like this. This is easier, but I can tell you another way. So you have to be very organized. You have to have a folder with the name, screenshots, or test results, whatever you want to call them, and then put all your screenshots there and then attach them. So let's say I have this folder called screenshots. And I'm just going to call it BOA1. So this is the file. Now I am
So we have to do it whether either the test is passed or not.
Yes, test is either passed or failed. So let's say this is passed, I need to attach an evidence. I'll click here. You can drag and drop also. I'll go to the folder screenshots and attach this. If you want to write a comment, say see attached screenshot for evidence of test case. If you want to write it, otherwise it's understood.
And everything will be saved, correct?
Everything is being saved. Everything is saved here. Okay. Now, so this is how you do the testing and you save the results. Okay. Now, I can show that to you or I can wait. you see the screen which says 1 passed, 0 blocked. So let me tell you a couple more things before I go to this report in test run and results. So if you see, if I run this test case, you have 4 options. You understand what passed and failed is. What is blocked and retest? Okay? So let's say you start testing your application and your first test case fails. You're blocked, right? Okay? You don't have to block all the 500 test cases after this. You block 2-3 test cases so that when the report is generated, everybody understands that because your first test case failed, you're blocked for the others. So that's what block means. You can't run it. You want to run it, but you cannot. Why? Because a critical test case before that failed. So if you can't install the app, you're blocked from testing. If you cannot tap it and the screen doesn't open, you're blocked. So that's what block. Block means you cannot execute because of a bug that you have blocked. Retest. Now, retest can mean 2 things. Okay? You have executed a test case and you're not sure if it's passing or failing. Why? Because you're not clear about the functionality, or the expected result you had doesn't look right. You are confused, in other words. You have tested something, you're not sure if it is passing or failing. Okay? So you want to mark it retest so that you come back tomorrow and retest and ask the question from a business analyst or somebody from the QA team. That is one reason. Okay? The other retest is if you have a bug that got fixed, okay, you want to retest some other test cases around that functionality just to make sure that nothing is broken. You can mark it retest. Anytime you want to retest something, you can mark it retest for different reasons. Reason 1, you're not sure about the result. You want to ask a question, right? Or you think when you had written the test case, that was the requirement, but over a period of time it changed. Okay? So your expected result might be incorrect. You're not sure. So that's why you mark it retest. So these are the 4 statuses. Now, the manager has the ability to assign the test cases. So let's say these were right now 4, so it will not make sense, but let's say these were 500 test cases, right? As a manager, you can assign all or 1 test cases to the users. Right now, I am the only user. So let me make one concept clear. At the job, each one of you will not have a test trail account. You will have 1 test trail URL and everybody will be using the same. Okay, right now you have separate instances of test trail. At the job, the whole team uses 1 test trail instance, different accounts, but you can access each other's test cases. Okay, so a couple of things that you should know. You are the admin of this test trail, so you have the ability to delete test cases. Okay, don't use that functionality because at your job you will not be the admin and you will not have the ability to delete test cases. Okay, they will not give you the ability to delete test cases.
But we can edit.
You can, yeah, here you can delete them, but don't do that. Because I want you to learn the way you will be using it at work. Why they don't let you delete it? If you are leaving the job, you don't like somebody, you don't like your boss, you delete all test cases and you go home. So they don't want you to do that. So you will not have access to delete. You can edit, but not delete. So don't use this functionality of deleting because you will not have it. If you messed up a test case, you can always edit it. Okay? Another thing, I'll go back to test run, but I want to show you, we have only 30 minutes left. So let's say your sequence of writing test case is not right. You made a mistake. Okay? You did not write it in the right sequence. You want to move your test case. Okay? So let's say I want to move my C3 or C4 under C1. Okay? So how will I move? you see these dots, but it's drag, but you have to know how to do it. You see these dots, 6 dots in front of C4?
Yeah.
So you go take your mouse there, and you see this black line, you drag it all the way where you want it, okay? And then you leave it. Now you have two options. You can either move the test case there, or you can copy it. So moving means it will get removed from where it is, and it will go there. Copy means it will stay there, and it will make a copy there. So I'm going to move it. So you see C4 gets moved here. So this is the right sequence.
But still the number.
Yeah, number doesn't mean anything. Number is not important. This is the sequence how it should be tested. Yeah, number doesn't change. So if I want to move it back, I can move it. And if you, so there's another way. So let's say one test case, you will have to run it 7 times. Okay, with some changes. Remember we discussed in request a card, you leave one required field blank every time. So you write one test case, make 7 copies of that. Okay, and then just edit the field that you want to leave blank. So let's say you've written for first name. Instead of retyping it all over again, you make 7 copies. Okay, you just move it here and say copy here, copy here. So you have 7 copies and just go and edit it. That's one way to do it. Or open 2 windows and copy paste it. So there are many ways to do things here. So try to be smart in writing test cases so that you don't have to type a lot. You cover everything with less typing. Okay, one more thing. So I know we are doing a lot of things, so we will do it again next week. Why I'm covering so many things? Because I want you to go home and practice using, so 2 things you have to do. So let's discuss the assignment. I want you to finish SDLC. You must have written till development, so write it for testing, deployment, maintenance and disposition. So complete the document, send it to me. We will review it next week in class. Also, I want you to complete the test cases for request a card. Okay, so these are the 2 assignments that you should do. The third is I want you to spend time on test trail. Get comfortable using test trail.
The second?
Write test cases for request a card application. Get very comfortable writing test cases, all the functionalities, and before you leave, I want you to try test run and results so that you know how to use test run and results also. Okay? So that's, get familiar with test trail. I can send you more YouTube videos, but I'm not sure if it's the right thing to do because it might not be clear or you might get confused. So I will still send it to you. If you feel it is confusing, stop looking at it. Just follow what I have told you in class. Okay? Some people who want to go ahead, I'm sending it to them for them if you want to go ahead and learn more things. But if you feel it is confusing, then stop watching it. Just do what I've told you in class. So one more thing now, we prioritized these test cases. What was the purpose of prioritizing it? That if we have thousands of test cases, we start testing the critical ones first, then high, then medium, and then low, right? Because we don't want to be in a position where we've tested low and medium, and the timeline is finished, and the high and critical are not tested. We want to do it the other way around. So how do we know when there are thousands of test cases, which one is critical? We don't want to open each one of them. So I want to see which one is critical, which one is high, which one is medium, which one is low. So this is how you do it. So you click on columns and you add a column. Okay, right now we only have ID and title. Okay, so so you click on columns. These are all columns. You add a column. You add a column called priority. So you'll have the priority of all the columns. So you know which ones, and you can sort it using the priority. So this will give you the priority. So you will know which test cases are critical that you need to run. Now, this is a printer. You hardly ever need to print your test cases, but if you want to print a list, you can print it from here. Now, you had asked me a question that some videos show you write test cases in Excel and then import it, right? So it's not a good idea to do that. You should write your test cases in TestRail directly. Now, when is that useful? As I told you, let's say the requirement changes, okay, while the software is being built, and you have to update all your test cases, just a few words in it. Everything else, I'll give you a very good example. The application that I use at work, we had a tab called compliance. The tab was called compliance. They renamed it to certification. They, as the business analyst, the client wanted it to be called, while the development was going on, while you were testing, they said no more, we don't want to call it compliance, we want to call it certification. So that changed at least 40, 50 test cases, okay? So easier way is to export test cases in Excel, rename the field, and then import it back. So in that case, that's a good idea, okay? But here you will still learn, because in 1 month, your test trail is going to expire. Okay, I'm going to remind you. So we will export test cases, save them in a folder, create a new account, and import them back in. It's a good practice for you to know how to import and export test cases. Now, another thing I want to show you is, so you have this test run and results, right? So let's say on day 1 at work, you executed 2 test cases, okay? You want to send this report to all the stakeholders. So this is your status report. So it's what your status report is, this graph that is being shown. So we have total 4 test cases, 2 are untested. That means 50% is untested, 25% has passed, because 1 has passed, 1 has failed. So it gives you the numbers. So 1 test case has passed, 25% of the test cases have passed, 0 blocked, 0 retest, 1 has failed, 25% have failed, 25% passed, 2 out of the 4 are untested, correct? So this is the report that you sent out. Now, how do you send out this report? So just watch what I'm doing, and then we can do it together. So this is your test run and results, okay? Now, if I have to send this report for the whole team, so you don't send individual reports, you send it for the whole team, what you've done in a day. So you click on reports, and it's important to know which one. You don't select anything under defects, anything under results. No, you select under run, okay? Run is important, so you select the summary under run. Okay. Now you give the same name as the project name, request a card, and you should put a date, because you'll be sending report every day. So whatever the date today is. Okay. Scroll down. Don't change anything. Now there are 2 ways. Easiest way is you put the email address whom you want to send. Email it as a PDF. Okay? So usually in companies, you don't write 20 people's email address. You have a group email for the project, and you type that group email, everybody gets the email. So you write group at abc.com, whatever the group is, so they will get the email. So this is one way of doing it. So add report. Now the other way of doing it is, it takes a few seconds for the report to generate. So that once you put that email, the report will go to those email. The other way is, you create this report, it just got generated. You open this report, okay? and you see this green button, you say download as PDF. You can download as HTML, I like PDF, it's easier to send it. So download PDF, report gets generated, and send it as an attachment.
I see.
Email it as an attachment. So this is the report that goes to everyone.
So either
Who
we-
has tested it? Okay, it has the person's name, how many passed, how many failed, how many remaining.
I have a question,
Mm.
Rashid. So whatever failed, we don't go back and retest it. We send the report to the developers and they fix it.
No, no,
For
no.
that day.
No, for that day, it is a status report. This is just about your test cases.
Oh no, I'm talking about, I'm sorry. I'm talking about, you remember you had something pass and something fail.
Correct.
We just
So,
have.
no, I'm coming to that. So what happens when something fails? You immediately go to another tool called Jira and you log a defect.
I see.
Okay? So this is only one part of the status report.
I see.
So this is what you send every day or twice a week depending on the process in your company. Along with this, you send a report of the open bugs or defects for that day, which we haven't done yet. I'm going to show you how to log bugs in Jira. So there are two things that you send on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly or a daily. Not everybody doesn't send it. One person from the team, it's usually the lead or the manager, they send it. Okay? But you should know how to send it. You send the report from TestRail, which are your test cases, and from Jira, your bug reports. Very easy to generate from Jira. When we learn how to log bugs, so what the stakeholders are interested is your status, how much progress you've made, and what are the open bugs, so that they can fix it. So this is if you want to try, let me know if you need any help. I want you to create a test run. Create a test run. Import all test cases. I mean not import, get all the test cases test run, then pass and fail something and try to generate a report. And also get the priority for the test cases. Select the priority.
Do I have to create a report too, or just?
Yeah, try to create a report if you can. If you're getting stuck, I can show it to you again.
Where would you find the pass and fail results?
So if you go on, add result.
Oh, here we go.
Add result.
Do you want us to do all 4 of them, or?
Yeah, just do all 4 of them.
Can you view the report before sending?
Yes, it's already always you can view it. It's on the screen. This is the report. This is the report that will be sent. You see this? This is the report. You can it's always viewable. It's frozen.
When I click on the summary and generate the report, it just came to the page like you sent.
Yeah, you can open the report and see before you attach it.
Okay.
You download it, right?
Yeah.
So you can open it and see it before you send it as an attachment.
No, it was coming like this.
Yeah. So go down, scroll down,
Okay.
scroll down, down. Keep scrolling down. Say add report. So it takes a few seconds. Then click on it and download it. Open it and see as long as you want. And then send
Oh,
it.
okay. So when we give our report, then only it will be generated.
Daily basis. It is one. Okay. Now you can download it as a PDF file. No, this is
So we get to this and it says we have to get the reports, right?
Okay, now you can send it as a mail. Send it. You can email it to your boss.
See, this report also goes to the project manager who can see the progress of the team. Progress of the.
You have to do it because you haven't done it.
Only in Jira we can give the same to option. Like suppose the status is failed, there is an option showing here like assign to.
No. You go to Jira,
Log
you
in.
log a bug.
Log in the bug.
Okay.
Log a bug
Uh-huh.
for failed test cases.
Okay.
But you get the result pass and fail or whatever, that you had to physically run the software on the website
Yes.
to get the result and
It's
then
manual testing.
then record it in here.
Yeah.
Никуда не
Record the
It's only a
results.
recorder.
Yeah, it's only the record. Manual testing. It tells you the steps you have to follow
Ну,
and the status.
нажимаешь run, да, summary.
And the report.
So you
The testing has to be done
So
manually.
in
Ты
reality
вводишь
you use the
название в
three
конце.
different,
Email, галочку, PDF.
Этот репорт только, он только формируется.
Нет, он уже отправился. Вот ты когда это сделала, вот
What do you
получила
do
письмо.
when you get this result?
For
Вот
web
письмо.
application.
Вот я сделал на свой email,
So
получила письмо.
if I do
Ты
any
видишь,
То есть на том уровне уже оно отсылается.
how do I edit
Да,
it?
когда он-
Вводишь почту, и
So
он
you
уже
did
туда
a
отсылается.
mistake.
Like
See,
I put-
so before you send a report, you can review it.
И ты
If you
получается,
have a mistake, you change the status. and
когда
you
вот
send
ты
it.
ну,
So how
получила
do I
письмо,
change it after I
открываешь.
send
А
it?
зачем
You
тогда
have to
его
generate it
вводить
again.
еще?
So you don't send
Кто
it till you
download?
review the
Вот
report.
зачем?
First you
Ну,
review
смотри.
it. If you made a mistake,
Вот.
then don't send that report. Go back and make the change.
Скажи,
and
вот
review
смотри,
it.
вот я затестировал,
Yeah,
это
but you
мой
should
босс,
review it
который
before.
проверяет. Скажи свой
Yeah,
email,
but once
я
it's
могу тебе
gone, you
отправить,
can't
тебе
change
же
it,
надо
right? It's already
посмотреть
gone.
этот репорт. Ты же
So
не
you
будешь
wanna
заходить
see
сюда.
this? I can-
Нет,
То есть если ты
Well,
скажешь
that's fine.
email,
If
вот
you
скажи
can,
email.
you can email it to me.
Ой,
You can email me the report.
So
Как?
after, because I already sent it.
You can send it again. You can go to reports and send it again.
Конечно. Всё.
Of course. PDF. So you go to
At
reports.
Gmail.
So you just click on this report, and then you go to the green
Подожди.
arrow
Она идет
and
загрузка.
then download PDF. Okay, so this is how you download. Once you have the report generated,
Принимай.
you have to click on the report and then click on this to download it.
Вот зачем там?
Чтобы ты сама могла посмотреть, что ты отправила.
So it will be sent before the downloading itself, right?
So you can send it before the downloading or after the downloading. Either way.
So we have delete that email address from that column.
Не, серьезно.
Yeah, no, you don't select it.
Мне пришло мгновенно.
Oh, okay.
Надо новую почту заводить, да?
А, вот, всё.
It's in your sent folder. If you're emailing it, it's like your email, right? So in your sent
Так,
folder.
публикуешь, message attachment.
When you send the
И ты можешь уже скачивать этот attachment, чтобы посмотреть.
You will also
Просто
get it.
посмотреть.
You are also in the group,
Скачивать.
so you will also get it.
you have a copy of it.
Yeah, yeah.
You get- okay.
And you have a copy on your test
Or
trail
you can
also.
say HTML.
And you have the, so that's a good idea to put the date, so that if you have another report from tomorrow, you know which one is the latest one.
Also at this one.
Так, это работает. Так это работает.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah.
Just
You know what, I want to show you, I'm not sure if you guys realize some techniques of testing. Okay, I don't want to move too fast. First, let me ask, do you have any questions on test trail, what we have done? Obviously, you'll go practice at home, you'll have questions next time, but if there is any specific question, let me know, I can answer that. Because we have 12 minutes, I want to just discuss the assignment and I want to show you a couple of things from my project where I work at Library of Congress.
So writing, we were just talking about, writing on test cases. For any functionality, you write the three different methods.
You go to open or you go to save?
Right, like
No, you can save it.
putting all the right answers in one step.
Correct. So
Second one is
first you
around-
plan, first you do all the positive,
That's why we
then
want
you do
brings it
negative
in,
and blank.
in the
Yeah, the
middle.
blank is negative testing.
Yeah.
Just depends on
Whatever you think, I want you to start thinking as a tester now. What will you test to test this application?
Okay.
Plan it and write the test cases. And then we'll discuss it in class, okay? Don't assume anything, you have to test everything. So what will you test? I'll give you a number. 16, 17 is at least you should write for request a card. If you're writing anything less than that, more you can write as many you want, but 16 is the minimum you should write. That's a minimum.
On that simple base,
On request a
Мне
card.
кажется, есть каждый скриншот.
Test
I
cases.
missed it. Oh,
No,
16
мы не
test
сможем
cases.
At least.
Mr.
And
Rishi,
second,
did you send the request card us by email? Did you send the
Сейчас
request card
у нас
that
нет
information?
UI дизайн
It's in the QA folder.
каждой странички.
Ну, у нас одна страничка есть.
So request a card screen, it's in your QA folder.
Я
If you
не
want to look at it
видел.
for writing.
And you were telling us like do one at a time, so that's, it means we have to write lots of test cases.
16 at least, yeah. So plan if you have to test it. We've gone through this in class. How will you test it? If you have to test this application. That's how you plan, think, and you write, okay? There's a logic behind writing test cases. So you need to first understand what you need to test and then write it, document it. Try to follow my way of writing test cases if you find it easy. If you think you have an easier way, document it that way. It has to be clear though. Clarity is what is important. Another thing when you write test cases is maintain a sequence, okay? If you're reading your test case, it should go in a sequence. You should not get lost reading your test case that after test case 2, test case 3 doesn't make any sense. It should be in a flow, right? It should be in a flow. That's how, it should be in the right sequence. It should be prioritized, it should be in sequence, and it should have enough details for somebody, especially you or somebody else, to read it and be able to test it, okay?
There's one thing I want you to show, like preparing a report summary. At the end, we are submitting everything for that day. That time, we have already found the 2 bugs.
Correct.
We need to include that in the
Yeah,
summary.
I told you, right, we'll include it once we learn how to use Jira. So that will, once you learn how to log bugs in Jira, we will generate a report for all the open bugs. So your status report will be from test trail and from Jira. Test trail will have your test cases that you've executed, passed, failed, and Jira will have all the open bugs.
So that report is also going together with.
Together, they both go together. Open bugs. Only open bugs is what you have to say. So if you have 2, 3 test cases failed, you should have the same number of bugs that you report. Yes, that's important. I don't want to cover too much today, then it'll be very difficult for you to comprehend. Okay, so let me give you some examples of real world, some defects that my team found, okay? It's a very basic thing, that'll answer your question. Developers can't think, developers are smartest. The developers in my team are 10 times smarter than me, okay? They know how to write code, but I can find bugs in their code. And they'll have sleepless nights because they don't think of things that I think of. And I'll give you a very basic example and you'll be shocked and surprised, okay? It's taking me time to access my work, I'll still try it. Let me give you a simple example, okay? So this guy is from MIT, okay? He writes code like nobody developer I've worked in 19 years. But even that guy, 10 years of experience. did not think of something that I thought of because I think like a software tester. He's a smart developer. Very basic thing. So our application at Library of Congress has 6 tabs. Okay. So this is called document, and I'll explain you the functionality in a minute. This is called party. It's called title. This is called compliance. What is it called? Certification. This is called pay and submit. I'm missing one field, whatever I'm missing. Document, party, title, certification. Okay, whatever I'm missing, that's fine. Let me explain. So they wrote excellent code. So how our application works, let me give you a background. So I work at Library of Congress copyright department. Anyone who wants to copyright anything, like you made a movie, you are a Hollywood producer, right? So you have to copyright your movie. You come to our department, we will copyright it for you. That there is no other movie made with this name. You have a poem or you write a book. You want to copyright it. So you come to the copyright department at Library of Congress. So this is a manual process right now. Manual means it is done through emails or physical paperwork. So we are transferring or making a website that people can do it online. So that's the whole purpose. So how this application works is you first go to this tab. So you log in, you register, you log in, you go to this tab. Here you upload the document that you want to copyright. Okay? And then the documents fall into 10 different categories. So you select, it tells you what category will fall. So you select 10. Okay? Then you add, so you go to the next screen, you add a party. What is a party? Party is the people involved in creating that document. If you are the only one, then there is only one party. If there were 2 people involved, there are 2 parties. Title, the thing that you want to copyright, does it have one title? So if you're a music company, you're trying to copyright your 500 music songs, you have 500 titles. If you have 10,000 titles. If you have 4 books that you want to copyright, you have 4 titles. So this is what titles are. Certification is you have to answer some questions. Based on those questions, for these answers, the Copyright Office can process your application. Okay? Based on those answers, they will process your application. Then you, based on how many parties are there, how many titles are there, how many documents need to be uploaded, based on all that, you get the fee and you pay it. Okay? So this is pretty much straightforward functionality. Now I'll tell you the defect that an MIT developer could not think of. And I don't blame him. The developers have to follow the requirements and they think straight. So everything works fine when we get this application. As soon as I fill in everything, remember there are 10 different document types. So I fill in one document type, everything is working fine. I fill in the second document, everything is working fine, I can't find a defect. I fill in the third document type, everything is working perfectly. Because he's an MIT developer, I can't find a bug in his code. As soon as I select one document type, fill in the information, and before going to pay and submit, I come back and change the document type. Everything breaks. Getting my point, what I have done? So I select one document type, I select party, I select title, I select certification, I answer the questions. Before going to pay and submit, I come back here and I change the document type. Okay? Everything gets messed up, whatever I have. Either it should clear, right? Because I've selected a different document type, right? So the fee calculation is wrong. All the fields here, some exist, some go away. Okay? So what I'm trying to tell you is when a developer writes code, they think of an application working in a straightforward way, like a normal user will use the application. But there are some crazy users, and it's a valid scenario. I am trying to copyright something. I realize that I've selected a wrong document. Okay? Because there is a preview, I forgot to tell you, there is a PDF preview screen. Before you pay, it lets you open a PDF and check the selections that you made here, 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 and here. You made the selections. It tells you, please review that all your selections are correct. Then you pay. So when I'm reviewing it, I see I have selected a wrong document. I go back and I change it, and then everything gets messed up. So that's when I realized that where the bugs are. So that gave me an idea. Then what I did was, I went up till there, and I came back and changed from 1 party to 2 party. Okay? The calculation was wrong. It was still giving me the calculation of my first selection. Okay, I can forget, I have a partner, I forgot his name, but I want to go and add his name now. Same thing with the title. I have 5 titles. Okay, I realized I missed 10 titles. I go back and change the titles. The fee is still for the last 5 titles. So what I'm trying to tell you is, when a developer is writing code, they don't think that people are going to change it. They have written the logic that if person makes selection, they will get the right proceed. They don't think that a person can go back and make a change. So if I was testing it by selection, I could not even find 1 bug. For 2 days I was testing all the 10 documents, different selections here, but only 1 time without changing. So I select 1 document, I select 5 parties, or I select 10 parties, or I select 1 party, 10 titles, everything was working fine. As soon as I started changing things, everything started breaking. So that is what a software tester is supposed to do. First, understand the application functionality. See what are the different ways a user can use the application. Okay? And then test it and find the bugs, so that the developers can fix those bugs and the quality of the application becomes better. So this is the example I want to give you, that it doesn't matter how good a developer is, it is impossible for them to think of every scenario when they're writing the code. They can only cover those gaps after you find those defects, you identify them, and then they will cover those.
I think this is more difficult job than developer.
You can say that. I don't think it is a difficult job. I think you should, one important thing which I keep stressing is, it's very important to understand the business reason of the application that you are going to test. Okay? How does the functionality work? What is the purpose of the application? Once you understand that, then you can think of how a user is going to use this application. And then you can. So I'll tell you another bug that came later, just for information. Now it's fixed. So the PDF that we were generating, it was missing some fields. Again, so you get till here, you generate the PDF, you get everything right. Okay? As soon as you go back and change the party, number of parties, or add something, and you come back and generate the PDF, it still has the values from your first selection.
It's not changing.
It's not changing, because the code has been written. So there were like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bugs, which I could have created 20 bugs, but I wrote only 7 bugs. The developer understood where the problem was, and he's a smart guy. He gets things so fast. He fixed everything. Everything is working perfectly. But there are ways that a developer cannot think when they're writing code, that this can also happen. Even you might not have thought, even I did not think of when I was writing test cases. When I saw the application, that's when I thought of this, of going back and making things change. When I was writing test cases, I did not know that I have to do this, or a user can do this. Only when so you will have test cases, but when you start testing, you will realize there are certain things you can do which you cannot think of when you're writing test cases initially. Only when the application is available, and then you test those, you can add your test cases at that time if you want, and then find those bugs. So this is the application I wanted. Oh, it's already time, so I'll show you next week. So assignment is, and I'm going to email that to you, and I'm going to send you the Excel sheet, everything that we did in class. So number 1 is write test cases for request a card. Sorry, finish your SDLC document, write test cases for request a card, create a test run, see if you can generate a report, spend time on TestRail, reviewing the functionalities that we have learned. Okay? That's enough. If somebody has more time, then start writing test cases for the vehicle insurance. Okay? But if you don't have time to write, at least spend 1 hour on both the applications together, 30 minutes, so that you understand the functionality, so that you can write test cases fast and then automate it. Because when we are automating it, I don't want you to learn the functionality at that time. At that time, you are going to be automating it. So you should not be learning the functionality. You should learn the functionality ahead of time. And we'll continue with TestRail. I will also show you the application that I'm testing at Library of Congress, and I'm going to show you the kind of bugs we find and how do we test it.